How about you, Rise?
I felt a lot better before you called my speculation useless. Ziggy.
And Rampant, don't forget.
Oh, yeah, sure. I mean, they're going to be 100% accurate. We've got all the predictions. It's going to be solid, I think.
I kind of threw you on the bus today a little bit. He had some stuff planned out for speculations, but I just like cut him off at the knees, so he's had to rethink his speculations his entire life, really, in the lead up to this moment. So I imagine that's kind of stressful, getting up on stage and being in that situation.
Yeah, I think I'm good. I've got some good ones.
Excellent, excellent. What about you, Noogie?
Excited, and as Methel, pretty nervous, I would say. But we're joined with so many just lovely people traveling all the way to New Zealand, and if there's anything that helps an awkward situation is just having a shared common interest, which is Path of Exile.
Right, so many beautiful nerds here
in
New Zealand coming together. More than ever before as well. We've got like, I think it was 1,800 people, I think. A few hundred people more than last Exilecon, which I did not predict. So that's they're strapping people to the rafters. They're opening up the balcony seats. People are getting suspended and hanging above the crowds. It's going to be quite the spectacle. And I'm already people started coming in and taking their seats. We've got a little bit of a crowd here.
Scares me if that's true.
So pretty exciting stuff. And yeah, it's been a long time since we've seen much of PoE2. GGG's been pretty quiet. Last 4 years, yeah.
Which only gets me more like pumped for it, because you just know there's been so much like working on, and they're just ready to reveal. Like, there's no way the silence has been for nothing.
The secrets. Well, I mean, we just had like 2 little tiny teaser trailers recently, but I was surprised by how much I could get excited by just those little 2. I had to spend an hour analyzing them just because it was like 40 seconds of content,
really
but it was
excited
like there was so much in that we already seen. Like we started seeing things like new class models, at least possibly new classes. I don't know. What do you guys have any predictions about that side of things?
Yeah, it looked amazing. I really liked how a lot of the times whenever you used an ability, it moved around your character. I think a lot of people want those characters to move forward in the trailers that we've seen. A lot of them jumped back and all that, but I think it's going to be pretty good, and it looked very different, Because 4 years is a long time. That's like the life cycle of a lot of games. So
No, I mean all the trailers and the 2 that we saw. If you just think back a little bit about all the things we were shown last time with all the new gems and the skill systems, I feel like you can finally start seeing what it is they wanted to do with the game just through those trailers at least. I was looking really excited.
Yeah, we saw like so much big systems change and things like that announced last time, but it's been so long, and I expect that something of that at least has changed a lot.
Oh, yeah. I mean, through any creative process, right, you figure out what works, what doesn't, so it'll be...
Yeah, who's to say like the skill system hasn't changed dramatically, or they're like doing something else in the end game, or who knows? There's very little we do know at this point.
Hopefully they figured out what doesn't work. Come on.
Yeah, absolutely.
We need that
plenty of time.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, but at the same time, a lot of people who played the demo previously really enjoyed it. Only myself only got to play a little bit, but I was super impressed with what I played. And do you guys play the demo last time?
A little bit, yeah. At least some on live stream. But let me just remind everyone that PoE2 is going to fix everything, right? Like, it is saving marriages. It is going to...
So good, yes.
Yeah, don't worry, Ziggy. It's going to do all the heavy lifting for you in that regard. But
PoE2 is so good, it's going to save Diablo 4. That's how good it is.
Oh, he did it.
Yeah,
he did.
Someone went there.
Someone broke the covenant.
Yeah. Anyway, let's not hold our expectations too high on that one, right? But I was just going to point out for the teasers, like a lot of it was big because for me personally, a lot of it is about the character models and the skills, and I was pretty blown away with how all of the skills look like they'd pretty much been reworked graphical-wise. Like I was looking at the teasers and the trailers and thinking, is that the skill that I think it is? And it looks so different and so much better. Like I'm really into the MTX and the changing of the skills and all that, and just by default making all of them way prettier and way more fluid. I think it's going to just bring the game into current era of ARPG gaming.
I think that's what really grabbed me from those teasers as well, was the diversity in skill use and having a lot more like situational skills like that, especially the monk kind of looking gameplay.
Right.
That looked super interesting with like the unarmed slash using weapons combat kind of weaving together, and the movement like you mentioned. that's the biggest thing I've wanted for PoE for a long time, is more skills that involve like a step forwards, a step to the right, because melee combat is fluid, it's dynamic. Like footwork is a huge part of any sort of melee combat situation. So seeing that represented in game a lot more is very exciting and kind of points towards some of the stuff I'm really hoping to see out of PoE 2, but we'll come back to that in a second. Firstly, I want to hear, what do you guys really hope to see today, or predict that you'll be seeing today? Matha, what are you predicting?
Well, as far as predictions go, the one thing I've learned over the years with Path of Exile is that I've learned nothing about predictions. People always come to the channel and they ask, "Oh, what do you think's going to happen with this?
I'm not subscribed to their
happen with that?" And I engaged with that for a while in past times, but I could just never get anything right, because you don't know. Like, they always throw curveballs. They're always giving you unexpected things. I thought they're going to buff this. They nerfed this, whatever. Like, it's always it's this huge up and down balance, and I could never really get any predictions right. But that said, I think I'm just going to be blown away. Like, it's going, like, I've been looking forward to what they're going to announce, and I have sensed some discontent in communities throughout all of this, just as they're waiting for Path of Exile 2 and big new leagues and all that, and there might still be some doubt here or there, and I think there's no doubt. Like, it's just going to be a huge renewed burst of faith in, oh, yep, this is the game I chose, and for very good reason, and it's going to be, just unreal.
Awesome. Yeah, absolutely. I'm with you on that as well. Like, people always ask me, what would be your designed league that you would make? And I'm like, I have no idea. I'm glad I'm not in charge of that, because GGG always come up with way better stuff than what I could come up with for that. What about yourself, Rise?
I think I'm going off the deep end. No PoE 2, PoE 3. Okay.
On only mobile, only PoE mobile.
Oh, wait a minute. No, I don't want to go there.
So they combine them, right? 2, 1, PoE 3.
There you go.
Makes
That's
sense.
the way to do it.
Path of X.
There you
It's
go.
all one platform.
Wait, so Elon Musk bought it out?
It'll do your banking.
I was about to say.
Yeah, okay.
Someone's getting sued.
Where's Musk?
I
Lawsuit.
think lore-wise, it would be really great if they just close the story off before PoE 2. So our characters always kind of like messed with the world, not always in positive ways. I just want them all gone, Blow it up. I don't know. New planet, different world. That would be really nice. Oh, and also I'd love to see, PoE has done really well with cooldown abilities and all sorts of just kind of timings in it. I would love to see maybe some ultimate abilities, something that is a little bit more tied down to particular ascendancies or particular classes, maybe some new classes, Because last time they were talking about how there's so many more new ascendancies. I think maybe spreading them around a little bit with different characters would be pretty cool.
Yeah, adding a little bit more distinction there, like in a very physical sense in the gameplay. Yeah, I'd like to see it too. What about you, Noogie?
Well, I really like Mathel's answer of no predictions. So that was great. So I wish I could take that one.
He's an expert, right? Look at that.
Yeah.
What a dodger! I love
This
it.
really is the Stallcast.
Yeah. But he is right though, in the sense that GGG always overperform, or try to at least, more than anything. So it's really hard to predict what it is, like in which direction they are going. So I'm really excited to see what is it they want us to see. Like, I want to see them in the game again, like really all out. So that's something I'm excited about. And then we have all this beautiful art behind us and statues, and like maybe we will have some kind of a narrator leading us through a story. I would really love that within the PoE 2 story, and just seeing what's just...
That would be kind of awesome, actually.
A big office now. Like, what can that many people bring within the title?
Yeah, that's actually kind of one of my predictions, actually. I expect a bit of an uptick in the storytelling side of things.
Yeah.
And this was just barely hinted in one of the teasers that I saw, where the character really felt like they were interacting a little bit more with what was actually happening around them. Like in current PoE 1, you get your character kind of tossing out a cute throwaway line every so often. But the character in one of those teasers was actually kind of like addressing one of the other NPCs there and having like a little bit more interaction with the environment. I'm excited for a potential, improvement in the storytelling side of things there, especially with the like flavor oozing that we saw in previous iterations of the PoE 2 stuff that we've seen. And yeah, this stuff behind us, I don't really know. You guys can't see the top of this, but there's like a giant blood creature and there's a creepy head up there and a spine. Yeah,
they see it.
They've blown it away with the decorations this year.
Kind of sounds like they're going with a very much horror theme.
That actually made me think one of the things I would love to see and always hope to see is cutscenes. So like, you know, it helps build you into the world, into the story, and immerse yourself in that, and really like get invested and care about the story. And I think, you know, this is possibly, if ever, the time for them to have big cutscenes, and that would just be amazing, I think.
Yeah, that would be cool. Even if you don't get cutscenes, the one.
It's amazing, though.
It's cool.
It started to look like it was going to go places, and it was going to be really cool. And yeah, we needed more, right?
Just kind of like, you know, dipping their toes in the water with that one, I think. But even if you don't do cutscenes, like kind of big dynamic moments in the actual in-engine gameplay as well. And we saw a bit of that in one of those teaser trailers too, where like the boss comes smashing through the wall and there's debris and stuff flying everywhere. That's a lot more than what we've seen previously. And they started doing that in PV1 a little bit with like the rework to Brutus and him kind of smashing through the walls. That was an exciting moment, right? It was terrifying.
Oh yeah.
Brutus coming just smashing through the prison and chasing you through doorways and stuff like that. So more spectacular moments like that. Something I definitely think we're going to see a lot of for sure. So definitely looking forward to that. I'm also interested in your thoughts on what we've seen in the past about the skill system. Again, things could be changing a lot, but that's something I've been particularly interested in is this change to being able to have access to more well-linked skills and then maybe a gameplay style that supports using those a little bit more. A bit more opportunity for situational combat. Not everything has to be like a super hard fight, but you know, the occasional moments where you're like, you have a little bit of back and forth with the monsters, and that gives you the opportunity to use that second or third or fourth extra well-linked skill that you've got access to now under this new system, if that's the way they're going. Do you guys have any thoughts on the skill system and what you'd like to see out of that?
I mean, yeah, part of the thing you were kind of alluding to is also like combinations of skills. So things like Frost Nova, Ice Nova, and Frostbolt, like interactions with skills. It can be a bit clunky sometimes, but when done right and with the right combat around you, it feels really good and satisfying to have. So things like that would be really cool. More of those for sure. But otherwise, yeah, the combat's already feels pretty good, and just more skills as always. You know, how could you not just want more skills? But if they're doing the skill linking system and there's more at your disposal, it's going to be just interesting to see how you can incorporate the different combos, because you have to make a lot of choices. You can't just have everything, right? So all of a sudden, you have to build into a few things and choose between the right things at the right times. And I think that makes for a much more dynamic gameplay,
That's a tricky balance to find, for sure, because PoE has grown increasingly difficult when it comes to sockets. I feel like back in the day, it was like, oh, if you're playing a summoner, you're going to be lacking a lot of sockets. But now it feels like that's the case on everything.
Literally every
100% of the time. So the previously teased system of having it be tied down to gems could be a pretty good solution. But who knows? It's been a long time. And in GGG fashion, they probably might have come up with something better. Even better.
And a big problem that they identified before was like early game, especially gear lock-in, where it feels like you can't change your gear very much in Path of Exile, and that's kind of always been a thing. And it would be nice to be able to freely take advantage of like different items that you find and things like that as you're going. Have a little bit more freedom, a little bit more kind of breathing room than what we feel like we have with the skills right now. What about you, Nugi?
No, I think the game being dynamic would probably be the main thing that I think they're going to go for. With the whole re-rigging of all the characters, them flowing through combat, and then you find an item on the ground and you can just immediately swap it out because you think it's better. There's no taking out the gems anymore and all that. So everything will just... There won't be many moments where you're kind of tinkering while mid-combat. Maybe you find something that's really good, like while you're fighting a big boss, and you just, boom, I socketed it in immediately. I don't even really need to do all the re-rigging. I feel
like that's GGG's like worst nightmare. We've had so many situations where like swapping out things make
you're already metagaming it. Just have an inventory full of different items for different combat. Like, I'm putting this on now. And
we're going back to the snapshotting.
Yeah. I'm sure that's gonna. The thing is, with a clean slate and everything changing, you never know how players are going to take that and, you know, be creative with it. Well,
absolutely. Yeah, I think shortening that moment from finding something to using it is like a really good thing to do. It's good for the endorphins, right? Like, some of the I think more successful leagues are those ones that have the shorter gap between like the content you're doing and then the reward you're getting for it. Whereas the the reward that comes, a long time down the line after a lot of stuff is realized, that's a lot harder for a lot of people to engage with quite as much, I think. So that kind of brings me, we're not just getting Path of Exile 2 stuff today. Towards the end of the keynote, there'll also be the reveal of the next Path of Exile 1 League, and it might be the last ever Path of Exile 1 League. Like, I don't know if they're going to do more after this, because there'll be the beta for PoE 2. All focus will be on that. Like, after the beta's out, are we really going to be like, yeah, let's go play the PoE 1 League again?
Is there going to be a beta?
Well, that's...
Whatever.
Whoa. What do you know, Siki?
I don't know anything.
Spoilers.
I really don't this time. Everybody always says to me, "Oh, you know everything, Ziggy."
You're the inside man. They bounce ideas off of you.
I really wanted to know nothing for this, and I was super glad that they did not spoil like almost anything for me, so that I could go into this completely blind, because I want to be here with all you guys.
Yeah, we were in the back room, and they were doing stage checks, and we were just like, la, 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 we can't see anything.
Yeah, there was something on the TV there. We're like,
see if that works better.
Yeah, we all saw one word, and we're like, no. Erasing it from our mind. Yeah, no, it's erased from my mind as best I can.
What I can say is that I did not predict that.
That word.
Yeah,
that one caught me off guard.
I did not predict that.
Oh. Yeah, that was one. Yeah.
Doesn't quite look right.
Let's move away from that. What would you guys like to see out of it if it was the final, a final Path of Exile League? It might not be. They might be doing more, but...
Yeah. I mean, I still think it's going to be a big one. I've had lots of people say, they're probably just waiting for PoE 2 and not necessarily going to do anything still big in PoE 1 or leagues and stuff. I think it's going to be a big one. And as always, they're trying to reinvent the ARPG genre to some extent, bring in aspects from other games. And what games I've been playing that are, I think, pretty popular at the moment are these sorts of...
I know what you're going to say. Survivors.
Exactly. I call them like reverse bullet hell, right?
Yeah, the bullet heavens.
Yeah, something like that. So like a vampire survivor thing. And I think they at some point, like very early into the game, touched on something like this, which is the Coward's Trial map. So that's a unique map, and it's basically just slaying waves of monsters, right? But it's very old, very dated. And I could see that they could definitely capitalize on that hype and sort of
I could see that, mate.
An entire league where you just...
If they reveal that now, everyone's going to be
very fun.
Oh, I hope I didn't... I'll take credit for, predictive, by all means, but I think that could be a really fun league mechanic for just satisfaction in
that whole genre is like a distillation of action RPGs in general. It's like, just take a lot of action RPG, kind of strip them down to like the very base of kill monster, get upgrade. Yeah. And it would blend well, I think. And we've seen a little bit of like sampling from other genres. We got some roguelike action recently.
Exactly. And it just seems like they see what's hot out there right now. How can we bring it to this game?
That.
And a lot of the time, it feels like it comes out of nowhere for this game, and it works. Sometimes I feel like it doesn't always work, but it's good. It's worth a try, and it's an experiment. But this one, I think that type of mechanic and system would be great. And who knows? Innovation is their strong suit.
I'm definitely here for that one, but that's one route they could go. Do you guys have any other thoughts of a different route they could go, maybe?
Sure.
Yeah.
Fixed trading, bring back Harvest, auction house.
Path of Exile copium.
Yep, pretty much.
You've been installing harder in PoE 1 than we have on this keynote. So, I'm just hoping for big bosses and a big wrap up to the story. Again, the thing we're seeing behind us, it is a little bit of possibly an ascended Xana-like creature. I don't quite know how that works out lore-wise. Maps are timeless, all this sort of stuff. I think they might be going big. I remember last time it was Metamorph, and was met with Conquerors of the Atlas as well. So that was a pretty good combo.
Yeah.
Definitely a very enjoyable league.
Conqueror's sick.
Hopefully no picking up of organs this time.
Okay. Automatically picking up organs.
Gonna call them out right now. Oh yeah, because we're reacting later on to what we're gonna be seeing.
Yep.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, we can call them out. Good.
What about you, Nugi?
Oh, it's a tough one. I mean, a big wrap-up would make sense if it is really the last PoE 1 league.
Yeah.
So, I mean, just like Rai said earlier, blow it all up.
Blow it up.
Just blow it all up. It always works because what's left in the, in the ashes. We'll see about that. Or a boat league.
That's always the other option, right?
Yep. There's always a boat
and
league.
or fishing league.
Yeah.
I mean, we've had gardening. Surely we can have fishing actually at some point. And as the like final, just like a meme send off for PoE1.
Yeah.
I think Crystal curses the gardening league. Quite a bit of.
Well, yes, we know they do. Certainly.
I don't think they like that one.
I think, yeah, it's kind of the ending of an era. We're moving from PoE1 to PoE2, and we're jumping forwards in time significantly. We're not getting a whole new world, but we are getting propelled forwards into the future and maybe exploring new lands. So it basically is a whole new world in one sense. So some sort of send-off. I would love, even if it's just a little thing, just some little send-off incorporated into the league or into the game, or maybe if they're doing some sort of like update to the end game, something like that, you can couple that with like something, a little bit of a teaser of what's happening in the end game when PoE2 comes out as well, because we've had some invasions from otherworldly entities recently, and that's certainly been hinting and leaning towards an extension of that. So there's going to be two kind of new storylines getting explored here, both Path of Exile 2 and its campaign storyline, but also what's happening with the end game. What is the Maven heralding forwards for us? You guys have any thoughts on that?
I mean, not really. Like, how much bigger can you go?
I know, right?
Like, we're already cosmic. Like, you start out on the beach and you got a driftwood club, right? And then you're slaying the cosmic entities from...
Well, that's what I think is rather interesting, is that we have Path of Exile 1 got really big, maybe too big, killing all the gods.
Yeah.
That's like the storytelling
God
thing
of
is
War.
like, you get to that point and it's like,
Come on
okay, you
now.
gotta kind of pull it back a little bit. And it looks like we might be going a little bit more humble, a little bit more grounded for the start for PoE2, and I think that's really cool. Yeah, I think so.
Oh,
So,
man.
and PoE2, like being able to pull down to something more of a grounded story, something a little grittier maybe, a little bit less crazy over the top, and then contrasting that maybe with the end game being a different thing, because they've always been a little bit separate, right? Like you have the story of the campaign, and then you get into endgame, and then it's its own separate story that's evolved separately and along a different timeline with some weird wacky stuff when you start to think about which exiles were where and which exiles we're playing now and which exiles we're playing before and how they incorporated the story. It's kind of like a wild system that is difficult to explain to non-PoE players, perhaps.
I can fully
even
expect.
2 PoE
I play it and it's still a little difficult. Yeah.
I can fully expect a
very
new world
confusing.
and everything. Just, oh well, if they kind of close it off in a way with a big bang, maybe it's like kind of a reset, and then we keep going further and further. I'm kind of hoping for that, because you were speaking very confidently about the beta and maybe no new world. Maybe we're gonna do an invasion on the world of wherever Maven's from and all that. I would love to see that big, mighty boss battles. I think PoE has been doing really well with that, and they're ramping it up every time, so the more of that, the better. Because it used to be a little bit disjointed too, you know? Back in the day, it was like, oh, you could do this boss or you could not, but now they're tied into the main gameplay, and I really love that. I think it's really great.
Yeah, I think bossing has been getting better and better, and those like spectacular moments of those big boss fights have become
Alright, guys, I'll be
both
right
the
back.
thing that propels you forwards in chunks through the game and through the end game, and then also the big goals too, like to take on these various bosses and then the uber bosses behind them. We have so much there in Path of Exile, and that's been getting better and better. And from what we've seen in the past, the bosses in Path of Exile 2 campaign look awesome. Like the previous demo, like the Devourer and those very boss fights that look like more interesting arenas, more interesting fights, and that's something I hope to see a lot of today, hopefully, is like some cool boss fights. I know we've got like 30 minutes or something of gameplay time live on stage, so...
Spoiler.
Yeah.
And
Also, I've heard.
difficult gameplay, right?
Yes.
So
Yeah.
they've ramped it up.
You were mentioning, Raz, you'd heard something about that.
Yeah, the difficulty is supposed to be through the roof. So if you're a player that's a little bit concerned about what you're going to be seeing here, if you're a father of 17 children and you've got the dishes to do and you can only play 20 minutes a month, I think don't worry about it too much. I think there's going to be plenty of gameplay for everybody.
Yeah, you won't run out anytime soon in that
Yeah.
situation.
I think so. Well, I hope so.
Any, we're almost to wrap up time and moving over to the main stage, but any final thoughts that you guys want to throw in? Anything you hope to see or anything like that? We've got 2 minutes, Noogie.
You thrown to me?
Yep.
Yeah, mate.
Final
Okay.
thoughts? Well, I just want to see passion.
Yeah.
I just want to see passion and just people just giving us everything they've been building. It's predictions. I really at this point I just don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe an MTX. I would like to see a toucan. You know?
Toucan.
Yeah, that would be nice.
What about you, Maple?
I will just love to see a nervous Chris Wilson up on stage.
Yes.
Like, for as much nerves as I'm having right now, like doing this sort of thing and waiting for the reveal, it pales in comparison to getting on stage and revealing everything for the past few years and just seeing someone so excited about their game.
Yeah, I know they're all like super excited, but also super nervous. I saw a lot of them before, and yeah, you can feel that excitement. Rise, any closing thoughts, mate? Before we sprint over so we get our seats.
Yeah, absolutely, Dad. I mean, everybody from the GGG side has felt really, really excited. We were trying to get them drunk at some of the parties. They weren't having it. They're well trained.
Ah, no spoilers.
Yeah, really, they weren't giving us anything.
No, that's good. They were more so than last time, even. Also,
Yeah.
I've got to remind you folks, if you're watching live on Twitch, don't forget to connect your Twitch and Path of Exile account so you can get drops access to. Was there like a cool hideout or something like that, or do we only get that? I don't know if I'm teasing.
There were
people.
some really nice wings and a portal.
Yeah, great.
I think so, but yeah, they look really good, those drops.
Excellent. Yeah, so make sure you hit that up. We're just about to go over to the live stage, and I can't wait to see what we're going to see from Path of Exile 2 and Path of Exile 1. It's been very exciting. Thanks for hanging out with us for the Stall cast. I'm Ziggy D with Mathel, Rise, and Noogie. We'll sprint back over here just after the keynote is finished. There is not much time left, so we'll see you fine folks over there in just a moment. Thank you very much.
D4 bad.
Here we go. I'm so excited. Nice hat, bro. That even be considered a hat? Really? I honestly wonder who all's there. Besides the 3 they showed in terms of Path of Exile streamers, I wonder who all's there. Eight, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Here we go. This is it. Oh, I've been waiting for this for so long.
Hey guys, how's it going? Perry in here. And welcome to Exilecon! Thank you all so much for joining us here in New Zealand. It's quite a journey. Thank you guys for joining us online. It's going to be a fantastic show. So you guys want to learn about what's coming up in Path of Exile?
Of course.
Oh, you do?
Why else will we be here?
Yeah. Well, before we get to the people that are best to deliver that information, before we get into Path of Exile's wonderful future, let's take a moment to go over all the wonderful things we have already experienced in Path of Exile. Let's take a moment to check out Path of Exile from the past.
Like his shirt though, that's cool.
Life is fleeting.
I wish I would have started back then. Nothing. That's when I started in PoE. War of the Atlas was when I started. Oh wait, was it? I don't remember. No, I was wrong. Okay. I think I started in Ritual League. Yeah.
With me?
Your path to greatness has taken a hard turn toward a cliff.
Detonations incoming!
Matter of fact, Ritual and...
There's no time. I've become too weak to sustain the blood crucible.
Your sullen defiance ends here, hatchling.
Oh. Fuck, what was the one right before? This one, Calandra League. There we go. It's the farthest I've ever gotten the game. Was those two leagues, Ritual and Calandra. Wasn't a big fan of Crucible. Much as I hate to say it, I kind of, you know, thought Crucible was too much like World of Warcraft's Legion artifact weapons. I just couldn't stand it. Sounded like one of those characters just said, "Suck it." I don't think they actually did, but that's what it sounded like. Weird.
Hi, I'm Chris Wilson from Grinding Gear Games.
Hello.
Welcome to Exilecon 2023. It feels like just yesterday that I was here on stage at Exilecon 2019 announcing Path of Exile 2. Since then, we have worked tirelessly on the content we're going to show you this weekend. To everyone here in person, thank you so much for coming out to join us. It honestly feels so good to know that people love Path of Exile so much that they fly across the world to come and celebrate it with us in person here. I really hope you have a great trip and make the most of your time in New Zealand. Our last Exilecon was a magical experience, and we've tried to go above and beyond in every way this time. If you're tuning in online to watch the live stream, thanks for joining us also.
I can't imagine how nervous he is standing up on that stage.
The full Exilecon experience, we have made sure to include every talk and session as part of the 2-day live stream this weekend. Twitch drops are enabled for the live stream, but if you're here in the audience, you'll automatically get them when you redeem the microtransaction code in your swag bag, so no need to stream it from your phones while you're watching. You'll also receive the attendee-only Exilecon 2023 hideout. We have so much to share with you this weekend, and let's just get right into Path of Exile 2. I'd like to introduce Jonathan Rogers and Mark Roberts, game directors of Path of Exile 2.
Hey guys. While Chris has been running Path of Exile 1, Mark and I and over 100 other developers have been hard at work on PoE 2. And honestly, the project has become much bigger than we expected when we announced it in 2019. It's been almost 4 years since then, and so it's about time we showed you what we've been working on. Oh, hang on. Okay. Sorry, I forgot. Okay. When we announced Path of Exile 2 at Exilecon 2019, we told you guys that we were releasing it as an expansion to PoE 1, and that both campaigns would be playable in the same game client with a shared endgame. But PoE 2's scope has continued to grow and grow, and it's far more than just an expansion with a new campaign. It has entirely new monsters, skills, mechanics, classes, everything you'd expect from the next generation of action RPGs. Not to mention revamps of most of the PoE 1 League content. This thing is just freaking huge. There was a point when we realized that our plan to replace PoE 1 with PoE 2 would essentially be getting rid of a game that people love for no real reason. So we made a decision. Path of Exile 1 and 2 will be separate with their own mechanics, balance, endgames, and leagues. But it's still a shared platform. Your microtransactions are available across both games. Everything you have ever purchased or will ever purchase in the future will be usable in both games.
That is freaking awesome.
Hyper-specific to the
I
content
like
of one
that.
of them. You can't transform into a bear in PoE 1, so a reskin of your bear form isn't going to work. But you absolutely can equip the awesome armor set that you got and use all your stash tabs. So with that in mind, we'd love to show you a live demo of some of the stuff we've been working on. PoE 2 has come a long way. Mark here is going to man the PC. Hopefully he doesn't die. It is a live gameplay demo after all. All right.
The gods caused all this, you know. After Oriath was destroyed, I traveled, searching for answers. Everywhere I went, the same divine devastation. It must end. I will end it. And no exile will stop me.
Well, here's hoping Path of Exile gets Druid right, or at least better than D4. Dude, this looks absolutely badass. I love this. Sorry about the language. Just realized it. This does look amazing though. Wait, did they already show this? I think a small saw a small portion of this. Dang, and this is just at the start? 100 bosses! Oh, Jesus freaking Christ! They literally went big, go big or go home with this.
No matter the cost.
This is bloody amazing. Oh, nose itch. Oh, this game looks amazing.
All right, Mark. Your turn now. Welcome to Path of Exile 2. We'd like to start off by showing you some of the gameplay of Act 3, one of the 6 acts in PoE 2's campaign. We're starting here in the jungle depths.
Okay, smaller campaign. Okay, I think that's a good thing.
Years ago. Jungle has taken over their former once great cities, and we'll be exploring it using one of the 6 new character classes called the Monk. In PoE 1, we had 1 character class for each of the combinations of strength, dexterity, and intelligence. When looking at the design of PoE 2, though, we realized that many of the new skills that we were trying to design just didn't really fit thematically with the existing classes that we have. Being a spellcaster with a bear form makes sense for Strength Int, but it just doesn't really sound like something a Templar would do. We realized that since we had new mechanics for every attribute combination, it actually made sense to design a new character class to explore the new themes. In PoE 2, every attribute combination has 2 classes associated with it. Strength Int has the Templar or the Druid. On Dexterity, you have the Ranger or the more spare-focused Huntress. And on Dex Int, you have the Shadow and the Monk, which Mark is playing here. Each class has its own 3 ascendancies that let you further specialize the class in a way that only that class has access to. But they both start at the same location on the passive tree. The quest rewards you are offered on the 2 variants are tailored to the class. But of course, this is PoE. You can still mix and match anything to your heart's content. Looks like we've come across the boss for this area. In PoE 2, every area of the campaign contains a boss of at least this difficulty. That's over 100 bosses to fight as you make your way through the campaign, and they all have unique mechanics.
That's awesome.
As you've been watching from Mark fighting here, you've probably noticed that melee combat in PoE 2 is a very different feel than before. We've done a lot of things to add mobility to combat. Practically every melee skill in PoE 2 has some kind of movement built into it. But the Monk in particular is a melee fighter who specializes in mobility over brute strength.
Nice. Sounds cool. That's cool.
So, as Mark has been playing, you might have noticed these blue markers over enemies. Mark has a skill equipped called Killing Palm. Whenever an enemy has a blue indicator over it, it means that the monster has low enough life to cull with Killing Palm. Successfully executing the cull will give you a power charge. This is an important skill for the Monk, since many of his skills interact with power charges. One of the great things about this skill is that it has a built-in dash forward, which makes it much easier to target the skill right at the point where you need it. We've done a huge amount of work in PoE 2 to make using skills like this feel satisfying. If you're accidentally targeting slightly off the monster, the skill will automatically lock onto the cullable target, and it will even do a small amount of pathfinding around obstacles. We really want to make sure that when you've got an opportunity to use the skill, nothing is going to get in your way. Once you have some power charges, you're going to need some skills to power up. A great follow-up is Falling Thunder. Falling Thunder without a power charge just creates a relatively small lightning AoE in front of you. But if you do it with power charges, it turns into a pack clearer with a large number of extra projectiles. One thing to notice here is that, like almost every melee skill in PoE 2, Falling Thunder has a little bit of extra movement built in, just in case you need it. Use the skill within range and you just do the flip in place. But use it at a larger range and your character will move forward while executing it, getting you into position without any time penalty. In PoE 2, you also get a short period to redirect your target. Notice how you can start the skill facing one way, then whip the mouse sideways to land the skill in a different direction? Now, in order to get power charges, you're going to first need to get some lower life monsters into a cullable range. You've got a few options if you want to charge right in. Whirling Assault is great. It doesn't do much damage per hit, but it covers a lot of ground. And notice how you can turn as you do it? Generally speaking, you never lose control of your character in PoE 2. If you make a turn at the right time, you can get a couple of extra hits on the monsters, getting them in range of your cull. Follow up with a Killing Palm, and then finish off the rest of the pack with your Falling Thunder.
Dude, I'm already loving it. I don't even mind that it's slow-paced.
We've now entered the Vaal Mechanarium. This is the place where the Vaal built the various constructs that they relied on to power their civilization.
Now this is a find! A Vaal ruin that hasn't been looted? I wonder why nobody's been in here before.
One useful feature we've added is the ability to call in NPCs to where you are to give you more information or help you with quest objectives, rather than always having to go back to town. In this case, we've called in Alva to find out what to do.
This mechanism, if powered with a small soul core, it could open that door. There should definitely be soul cores somewhere around here. They had to power these constructs somehow.
As Alva just said, we need to find a small
not gonna
soul
lie, I
core
thought
to open
they'd
the
use
store.
totally new NPCs for
If you
PoE
want
2.
to shave off some life without getting too close to some of the more dangerous monsters, a great option is Wind Blast.
The fact that they
Wind
kept
Blast
them
also
is
doesn't do too much damage,
amazing.
but it keeps enemies back. The closer they are, the farther they're pushed back. So it's a great option for keeping smaller but higher damage enemies at bay. Note that the bigger the enemy is, the less they'll be pushed back. So trying to push back some giants isn't going to be as effective.
Size matters.
And
Understood.
there's the soul core. Let's get back to the door.
Maybe it's not as slow paced as I'm thinking it is. This looks... The combat part anyway looks pretty quick.
Consider me impressed. I'll keep investigating in here. Bring me in if you find anything else.
Now, if you need to defeat tougher enemies, it might be time to break out some of the ice skills in the monk's arsenal. Glacial Cascade creates a wave of ice that moves slowly in front of the player. It's pretty ineffective against fast-moving monsters because most of the damage occurs right at the end of the wave, and so a lot of monsters will just walk right by it. But if you can find a way to make a monster stop at just the right place, it can be very effective. In order to do that, you're probably going to want to freeze some monsters. The monk has a few different tools to do this. A fairly simple option is to get right in the monster's face with Ice Strike. Ice Strike doesn't do too much damage at the first 2 hits, but attack 3 times in sequence and you can get off a combo that has a much higher chance to freeze. Get in there with the freeze, then roll back and finish the job with Glacial Cascade. Now, remember how Glacial Cascade is that extra damaging spike at the end? If you hit a frozen enemy with that spike, it shatters the ice on the enemy and does a devastating amount of damage. This is a really great combo against bosses, as you'll see later. Oh yeah, and I've just been casually mentioning rolling around. Did I forget to mention that in PoE 2 we added a dodge roll to every character? Just press spacebar at any time to roll.
Nice.
There's no cooldown and no limitations.
Wait, that's...
And it even has pathfinding in it, so you don't get stuck on anything. When you...
really? Are you sure
when
about that?
When you dodge roll, you're not invulnerable. If something hits you, you're going to feel it. But most things aren't going to hit you. And that's because while you're rolling, projectiles and melee strikes will always miss. You'll have to roll out of the way of a slam that has AoE, but anyone swinging a sword or throwing a fireball is going to miss. Now, another important function of dodge roll is it lets you cancel out of any skill at any time. This makes it so you don't feel like you're getting stuck during a long animation when something's about to hit you. It really changes how skills with longer attack and cast times play, and makes dodge roll a very reliable feeling way to avoid attacks. So, that's one way to get out of the way of damage, but the monk specializes in mobility, so it makes sense that he would have some more. Wave of Frost is one of our new attacks with a retreat built right in.
There we go.
You move backwards and throw out a cold attack with a
That way you guys can
freeze.
see what's going on
A great thing about
with
this
his
is that it
health and
puts you at
stuff.
a good distance to follow up with a Glacial Cascade and do a whole pile of damage.
Oh. Wow. Jesus. Just kill that guy in like 2 hits. Maybe that was just a statue he froze and destroyed it.
Another skill you can use to get some extra freeze is Shattering Palm. Shattering Palm is a palm strike that puts a small ice bomb on the target. Kill or deal enough damage to the target and the bomb will explode, doing some damage and a significant freeze. It's a great option against bosses where the wave of ice might not be enough to get that freeze off. But you really want to get, but you still really want to use Glacial Cascade to get the damage bonus. The final skill we're going to show you today is Flicker Strike. It's a monk skill and another skill that consumes power charges. If you've played PoE 1 before, you know what to expect.
Nice.
It's a great finisher for tough boss fights if you were able to get some power charges beforehand.
This really wants me to go, makes me want to play PoE 1.
Here we have Blackjaw, former overseer of the Mechanarium. When the Vaal fell, he was turned to stone and now guards the area. In order to take down this boss, we're going to need all the tools on the monk's arsenal, especially the combo of freeze and glacial
He looks
cascade.
bad.
Now, if you're a PoE 1 player, you might think you can't rely on freeze because there's so many bosses
Again,
that are
sorry
immune
for the
to it.
language.
But in PoE 2, that's changing significantly. In PoE 1, freeze is a binary mechanic. An attack freezes the target or it doesn't. What this basically means is that in PoE 1 we were forced to add freeze immunity to many bosses because freeze just trivialized them. Because of that, freezing was something you could only really rely on while pack clearing, and not something you could use as a core part of your build for boss fighting. In PoE 2 though, all crowd control mechanics now have internal meters that allow you to build up to a freeze or stun, or whatever other CC mechanic that you're using. It's a little bit like poise from games like Elden Ring, though the meters tend to be a lot smaller than those games. When you freeze an enemy, it increases the amount of freeze you need to do to get another freeze.
The fact that they're
but the increased difficulty bleeds away slowly.
referencing other games is cool.
Freeze the boss more often, but this system means that you will not get out. It will not get out of control in party play or interact badly with other CC mechanics, allowing us to let these kinds of mechanics actually work against all bosses.
Although this boss fight. Oh! Jesus! Although admittedly this fight seems like it's gonna take. Fight seems like it's gonna take a while. Oh! Jesus Christ!
Oh no! Alright.
Dang. He got stomped.
Alright, so this might be a good time to mention that in PoE 2, if you die to the boss, you have to start again from the start. There's no boss cheesing. So, hang on. Oh, there might be a... Are you okay? Oh, 1 second. One technical issue. It's just typing some cheats to... Alright, we good? Back to the stream. Alright. Alright.
Round 2.
Let's go.
Whoever balanced that, like, come on.
Yeah, they definitely did not make these fights easy. But I'm okay with that. Yeah, I'm already excited for this game. This looks amazing. Oh, not necessarily if he stomps you into the ground again. Oh. I think that's the ability that killed him last time. I wonder how they're gonna bounce this for co-op.
Holy.
Okay, do the. Oh, nice. Whoa, whoa, whoa.
Oh. Jesus. Yeah, this is definitely gonna take some strategy. Oh.
Give me a freeze. Come on.
That first boss wasn't so bad, the monkey dude, but this guy. Oh.
Oh, here we go.
Sorry I'm not talking guys much, I'm just trying to watch this. This looks so freaking cool. Oh! Oh, that was a close one.
Come on. No.
Oh, you could do this.
Get it. So good. There you go.
After this.
Oh.
Get him. Okay. Alright.
Oh, yeah, there we go.
Alright. Alright, second time's the charm. So, Blackjaw has dropped a consumable quest item here called the Flame Core. It's a permanent +10 to Spirit. In PoE 2, we really want to make sure that you feel rewarded for exploration. It wouldn't be much good if we made all these awesome optional bosses if we didn't have something great to find for killing them. One of the things you might find for killing a boss is permanent stat bonuses for your character.
Permanent stat bonuses?
Alright, now because this random area is different, Mark will have to find his way to the exit the hard way.
This is, because I died, this is no longer rehearsed at all.
Alright.
Face your demise.
this way.
Need to use those killing palms more often, Mark.
Probably should.
Your fate is sealed.
Whoa, 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 whoa.
Oh shit. There we go.
My poor heart.
Lightning strike. Oh. I think you got completely lost there.
I have no idea where I am.
I think the developer doesn't even know where he's going.
Yeah, there we go. All right, here
Well,
we go.
one of the
Here's the
developers.
So I'm gonna die to these sentinels somehow.
All right. Let's go right through.
This.
All right. All right. In order to help with the next area, we're going to call in a sorceress. I'd like to welcome Octavian to the stage, who's going to join the party with Mark, so they can play through together. All right, 1 second. All right. Here we go. All right. The sorceress is the new intelligence-focused character in PoE 2. While the witch focuses more on occult magic and summoning, the sorceress is themed around pure elemental destruction. Let's have a look at how she plays.
This is the largest soul core I've ever seen. With this, we could power the canal systems. But it isn't charged. There is still latent energy in this machinarium from its ancient operation. These lines in the stonework should lead to generators. You might need to find some more soul cores to spin them up, but everything looks to be in surprisingly decent condition. Maybe the golems have been maintaining it. In any case, it should still function. We'll have to remove that large core from the wall, of course, but that shouldn't be a problem.
Oh, this sounds like a bad idea.
We have some skills here you're probably going to recognize if you've played PoE 1 before, but they feel a bit different now. Spark is great in these tight passages since it bounces around. We've added a Pierce support gem to really allow it to hit an entire room full of targets. For a more single target focused skill, Arc is a great choice. It does much more damage than the first target that you hit.
My jaw's
Now,
basically hitting the
It
floor.
might be a good idea to use Ice Nova. It hits all enemies around you and slows them down with a chill. Just be careful. Getting up close and personal isn't the ideal place for a sorceress to be. She doesn't have the defenses of a more melee-oriented character. In order to help with that, though, you could use Arctic Armor. In PoE 2, Arctic Armor is a buff that builds up as you stand still. You can see the ice crystals forming around the character. They drop off if you walk. When monsters hit you, they take cold damage and build up to a freeze, so it's a great defense. Just be careful. You have to be standing still for a little while to get the full effect, so trying to stutter step using it isn't the best strategy. Now, Arctic Armor is an ongoing buff, but did you notice it didn't reserve any mana? How does that work? Well, we were pretty sick of the fact that in PoE 1, basically every character was playing with no mana pool, so we decided to change the way that reservation works. In PoE 2, there's a new resource called Spirit. Spirit is a dedicated resource that you can use for ongoing effects like Arctic Armor, Heralds, Auras, and Minions.
Nice. Yeah. Mana, the whole mana thing.
Everyone starts
always,
with 100 Spirit, which is enough for most ongoing effects. But if you want more, you're going to need to get some more Spirit, which is available on mods from items and on the passive tree. But if you're willing to go up your offhand slot, the easiest way to get it is by holding a Scepter. Find out more about that in the items talk later on. Now, if you want to increase the cold damage that you're dealing, you can always use Frost Bomb. It places a bomb on the ground that reduces enemies' cold resistance while it's ticking down. It's a great opportunity to use some cold skills before it explodes. And speaking of cold skills, a great skill to use on monsters with lower cold resistance is Comet. This is a new skill in PoE 2 and it hits pretty damn hard. It costs a lot of mana and has a really long cast time, but it's worth the wait. It does a devastating amount of damage. To help you out of danger, your character moves back slightly as it casts. It's pretty hard to hit fast-moving opponents, but it's great on tougher enemies that stand still, or even a larger pack if you're further away and can predict where they're going to move. Now, if you wanted a mana cast in too many of those, I guess in an emergency you could use your free-to-cast Fireball. So where did that come from, you ask? Well, this is a great opportunity to explain the way that we've changed caster weapons in PoE 2. Now in PoE 1, caster weapons had a default melee attack that nobody used. And because they had that, they also had a bunch of attack mods that would spawn in them that were useless to a caster. In PoE 2, we wanted to clean that up. So each staff now comes with a built-in free-to-cast spell.
Nice!
Just put it on and spam away to your heart's content. Now this particular staff is the base type that you'll get right on the starting beach, so it's quite likely that you'll have outgrown it by now. So that's why we've also made a lot of staves with more utility-focused powers for casters to use. Here we have a crystal staff. It has a pretty cool built-in spell called Unleash. Using it slams your staff on the ground and will allow you to triple cast whatever you cast with your next spell. Now of course what you're probably going to want to use with that is something powerful, and Comet is a great option.
Boom!
You'll notice that Unleash is one of the few skills in PoE 2 with a cooldown. In general, we really try to avoid using cooldowns because we really hate the feeling that combat is just waiting to cast your next spell. But it does make sense for Unleash since it's free to cast, and it's something we want you to use situationally anyway. Now, if you're facing something tough, you might need to try out Mana Tempest. Mana Tempest creates a circle of power which your character literally hovers over the ground. While in the circle, your mana drains, but it powers up all your spells. Lightning projectiles will fork, beams will chain further, and you also do a lot more damage.
This is nuts, guys. Jesus.
No mana.
So, with all of these skills, here's a great combo to try. First, cast Frost Bomb to reduce the target's cold resistance. Then use Mana Tempest to increase your damage. Follow up with Unleash, and then triple cast Comet to do a truly insane amount of damage.
Just
Where's ghosts come from?
These ghosts.
Yeah.
Whose fault is that?
Just from seeing this
is
is going to be
uncut
out.
Gem, and that's a great opportunity to talk about how skill gems drop in PoE 2. Instead of dropping specific gems, you can find uncut gems. Just right-click on them and pick whatever skill you want. Ignore the, whoops. The gem will come pre-leveled to the level of the area that dropped it.
Dude,
so it's a lot easier to change between skills in PoE 2.
Whoa!
This time I think it might be cool to grab one of our meta gems. Meta gems are skills that can have other skills socketed into them, changing how they work. In this case, we're going to select Cast on Shock. Now, let's equip this thing in the skill screen and choose which spell to trigger with it. I think Comet might be fun. Now, because Cast on Shock reserves Spirit, we'll need to first disable our Arctic Armor. We have to decide if we'd rather have the extra defense or the extra offense of the Cast on Shock using our Spark. In PoE 2, trigger gems use a system of filling up cast time on each trigger. Basically, if a skill has a short cast time, it will trigger really often. And if it has a long cast time, like this Comet here, it will take a lot longer to trigger. You can see in the top left corner, there's a counter that shows you how long until the next trigger. Hopefully he shots the monsters. There we go. And there you have it. That's using Cast on Shock. We've automatically cast Comet whenever we're using our lightning skills.
Jesus, man.
So, we found the generator. Time to power it up.
Can't stop yawning.
As power is restored to the Mechanarium, all the constructs are coming back to life. We'll need to fight them on the way back to the charged Soul Core. So, one thing that PoE 1 players might have noticed is this character has both lightning spells and cold spells. That's pretty inefficient, right? It's a big no-no for most builds because any specialization into cold or lightning isn't going to affect the other element. And generic elemental damage increases are not going to be as powerful as focusing on a single element. Well, in PoE 2 we have another major new system to introduce to solve these kinds of problems. And it starts, oddly enough, with weapon swap. Now, in PoE 1, weapon swap isn't really used much for its originally intended purpose. We imagine that people were going to be swapping in and out between different weapons to deal with whatever situation they were in. People just don't do that at all. And a large reason for that is because it's really, really awkward. In PoE 2, we wanted to solve all of that. The staff Octavian is using here has an ice mod on it that makes it great for when he's using his ice spells. But we would also like to be able to make sure that this build works just as well for his lightning spells. If Octavian equips his previous staff in his second weapon set, you can see that it appears on the character's back. Now, we're going to open up the skill screen. If Octavian opens the skill options for his lightning skills, you can see here that you can choose which weapon sets are usable with each skill. First, we uncheck set 1 from being used by his lightning skills. Then we go through the cold skills and turn those off with his lightning weapon. Just take a second.
If I can remember where they all are.
Yeah. Now, when we use Spark, the character will automatically switch to the lightning staff on his back and then use the skill. And when Octavian uses his Ice Nova, his character automatically switches to his ice staff before using it.
Oh, oh my god! Oh, this game.
You can configure each skill for which set to use, or both if you don't mind which. There's a very short time penalty to switching, so it can be good to leave some skills on both sets if it doesn't matter which weapon set you're using. But we still have a problem, passives. Wouldn't it be nice if we could specialize in both cold and lightning passives on the character? Well, in PoE 2 you can. Hopefully Mark can deal with those monsters while we do this demo. So, we're on the passive skill screen here, and you can see that we are close to both a cold and a lightning cluster. At the top right of the screen, you can see that we have some weapon set specific points to allocate. If Octavian holds shift, he can allocate set 1 to the cold passives, and then allocate set 2 to the lightning passives.
Oh, I can't wait for this, man.
Check it out. As we use our weapon swap, the skills allocate changes from one build to the other automatically. So whenever we cast the appropriate spell, the character's passives reconfigure on the fly to the correct build for that spell.
Oh, this is nuts, guys. This is nuts.
On your tree. Only points granted from skill books will allow this kind of dual specialization. So you're not going to be changing from a mace slamming warrior into a fire elementalist with the press of a button. But it certainly increases the number of options you have for builds. There's a huge number of places where the system can shine. You can augment your dagger shadow build with traps, or have a great curse set up on your witch with one spec, and then move to your chaos debuff spells with the other, for example. It really opens up your options. Now, another fun metagem to try out is called Barrier Invocation. This works a little bit like the trigger gems I talked about before, but this one charges up as your energy shield is hit by monsters. We're going to put an Ice Nova in this one. The more energy shield you lose, the more charge builds up. Just get that one equipped there, yep. So yeah, the more energy shield you lose, the more charge will build up, until the point you're able to cast the socketed skill instantly. There we go. So you lose some energy shield, and at just the right time, invoke Ice Nova to cast all the stacked up copies in one instant cast. If you keep losing shield, you'll build up even more charge for even more casts. So it's a great defensive option in an emergency.
Oh, this is unreal.
Overkill.
And here we are back at the charged Soul Core. All we have to do now is take it.
Oh yeah, that's going to be that easy.
Just take it.
Alva, what the...
Don't die this time, guys.
Oh, Jesus.
Nice. Wait.
Away from the wall. Oh god. Frozen though. Good.
Frozen, nice.
Helps that we're both doing ice damage. Cold damage.
He's stunned.
I'm not gonna lie, these bosses seem almost like just downright sponges.
Frozen again.
Getting real lucky with those freeze procs this time.
All skill.
But I'm seriously here for it. I'm totally here for this. Oh. I hope it's not going to be like another year before this game comes out. Well, maybe it will be because it's almost the end of the year, so. But still. You know, the guys earlier were talking about this being the last PoE 1 league. I don't know how they'll do that if this game isn't close to being done. Like, if it comes out next year, what are they going to have a league go on for 6 months or more?
Nice.
So that's Path of Exile 2. These areas, as well as around half of each of the first 4 acts, are available to play at the 3 demo zones around Exilecon. Now, if you're physically here at this event and you get to play the demo, just remember, it's a different game than before. It's a lot harder. You're probably going to run the first pack of monsters and just die. I really recommend you read the signs. They have good advice on how to combine your skills effectively, and remember, dodge rolls on spacebar. Use it. You're just going to die otherwise. So your next question is likely to be, when is the beta? Well, we're in our last year of development, but we're still finishing acts, adding skills, and balancing everything. The closed beta is going to start on June 7th, 2024. Path of Exile 2 has been a long time coming, and we're incredibly excited to be near the finish line, but we're just not quite there yet. We're determined not to rush this and make sure we get everything right. In the meantime, there's a lot in store for PoE 1. I'll hand back over to Chris, and he's going to talk about what's coming up. Thank you very much.
So that demo was very hard for them to do in person. Like, I am very impressed it went that well. So as Jonathan explained, Path of Exile 1 will continue to be its own unique game once Path of Exile 2 comes out. We will continue to update it with expansions and leagues going forward. And because accounts and microtransactions are shared between the two games, and their expansion releases are offset from each other, it's super easy to jump between them and effectively play both if you want. So I'm going off script for a second here and just going to explain this a bit better. Imagine we release a Path of Exile 2 expansion, right? So everyone dives in and plays it. You give it, say, out of the 13-week cycle, you're going to play for, some hardcore players play for the first few weeks, some people play for most of the time. We're going to aim a Path of Exile 1 expansion to come out towards the end of that cycle, say 4 or 5 weeks from the end, which also lasts for 3 months. So because Path of Exile 2 has more content and is a significantly larger game, it will mean that you can play Path of Exile 2 for the majority of the cycle, and then either keep playing if you want to keep playing Path of Exile 2, or jump into Path of Exile 1 when its league launches and enjoy that, either for the entire period or until the next Path of Exile 2 one comes out. And of course, because your purchases are shared, if you were to buy supporter packs or microtransactions in either, they're just available on your characters in the other. Speaking of Path of Exile 1 expansions, we've got one coming out in just 3 weeks, on August 18th. Let's watch the trailer for Path of Exile: Trial of the Ancestors.
Souls such as yours do not go quietly into the night. They thirst for battle. They yearn to prove themselves. Welcome to the halls of the dead. Earn your place among us. Under Henikora's watchful eye, test your mettle against the greatest warriors who ever lived. Prove yourself in the trial of the ancestors.
I hope this isn't a league where you can lose all your loot. I hate those leagues, man.
In the end, only one can become champion. Will it be you?
I'll at least try it.
In the Kurui afterlife, the fallen chieftains of each tribe participate in a tournament called the Trial of the Ancestors. You will journey to the afterlife, assemble your own team, and enter the tournament to battle those chieftains and earn valuable rewards. As you play through areas in the Ancestor Challenge League, you'll find tradable silver coins. Using them will take you to the Kurui afterlife, where you will encounter Navali, who you may remember from the Prophecy League. Each coin allows you to play a match of the tournament. You start the tournament with a basic team consisting of 3 warriors. The tournament is double elimination, meaning you're allowed to have 1 loss without consequence. A second loss eliminates you from the tournament. Your team will compete against 10 other tribes, and you choose who you're going to challenge next out of the teams left in the tournament. When you start a match, you see the configuration of the enemy team and get to place your team of warriors on the battlefield to challenge theirs. You and your party of exiles will play alongside your warriors. So while this league does have many elements of an auto-battler, you're right there fighting alongside them. During a match, when a warrior dies, they respawn at their totem after a short time. If their totem is destroyed, then they are instantly killed and can't respawn. The team that destroys all of the opposing totems wins. If you're playing a hardcore character though, don't worry. Hinokora, the goddess of death, is watching over you and will restore your soul to your body, so you can't permanently die in the afterlife. Like that. In the Trial of the Ancestors, strategy and tactics are key. Every unit has its own strengths and weaknesses that must be utilized to win matches. The turtle is really slow and really tanky. It's perfect for either defensive positioning to stop flankers or offensive positioning to tank hits for you if you're pushing through the middle. It's not great in the center or flank positions due to its slow movement speed. The Tuatara is a quick and deceptive unit, which is relatively well balanced for all positions. This version of the Tuatara has a stealth ability, which makes it perfect for the flanking position to sneak through enemy defenses and take out unprotected totems from the side. The Goliath of Night is a disruptor unit, and it's ideally placed in a center position to intercept enemies that are chasing you. You can also allocate it to defenses so that it disrupts enemies that are trying to kill your totems by stunning them. So in this match here, we've set up a Tuatara in a flanking position, a turtle on defense to guard our totems, and a Goliath to follow us as we attack up the middle. Our plan is to work with the Goliath to distract the enemy front line so the flanking Tuatara can get through and destroy some of their totems. Teamwork. Upon winning a match, you earn favor and other rewards. I'll talk about the other rewards shortly. There are a lot. You have a separate amount of favor with each tribe, and you can spend it by talking to their chieftain to recruit warriors and purchase field items and equipment that your team can use. Each tribe has specific specialities. For example, Hinakora's tribe manipulates life and death. Rongo Kurai's tribe is slow and tanky, with an emphasis on stuns and knockbacks. You can recruit warriors from many different tribes and mix and match them together into your team based on what you need. Field items are items that are placed on the battlefield and can be activated during the match to, for example, revive a warrior or heal your entire team. If a field item isn't consumed within a match, it persists on to the next match. But your warriors, their equipment, and your field items are all wiped between tournaments. You enter each tournament fresh. Your success in a tournament updates your overall ranking, which helps you in better rewards and subsequent ones. Speaking of rewards, let's discuss the good part, what you can earn for succeeding at the Trial of the Ancestors. You can tell this gets me excited. Okay. You get a reward as you win each round of the tournament, and these rewards are visible when you're selecting which tribe you want to play against. They'll help inform your decision, as some of them are regular rewards and some of them are exclusive new rewards you can only get from the Trial of the Ancestors. I'm literally tripping over my words to get to the part where I can explain tattoos. Okay. The Ancestors reward you with special tattoos that are not applied to your skin, but they're engraved on your soul. This process can transform what your attribute skills on the passive tree do, basically the attribute highway nodes generally. The regular ones can only be applied to basic attribute skills and allow you to convert your tree's attribute highways into something more useful for you. For example, this one converts a small dexterity skill into movement speed. Each tribe has its own exclusive passive tattoos. This tattoo converts a small strength skill into additional fire resistance. This one converts a small intelligence skill into additional lightning damage. And this one converts a small strength skill into one that summons a minion when you take a savage hit from a unique enemy. But don't go overboard on the number of skills you convert with tattoos, as you'll probably need at least some of your attributes left to equip items. Each of the 10 tribes has an exclusive unique item that you can earn. These rarely show up as rewards for defeating that tribe in a match. Katava's Hunger is a unique majestic plate that you can earn by defeating the Katava tribe. As you can see, it grants an immense amount of life for a single item, providing you don't have any life on any other pieces of your equipment. While this is tricky to accomplish, it also frees up all those other potential life slots to be something else that benefits your build, making it pure upside. This amulet is a unique item you can earn by defeating the Arohongui tribe. It has the powerful effect of causing your flasks to instantly recover life and mana whenever you're low. This could potentially be a powerful panic button, or maybe you want to build around permanently being on low life or mana, so all of your flask usage is instant. If you manage to win the entire tournament, you'll not only receive the reward for the final match, but Hinokora will also give you a choice of 3 additional... button didn't work. Of 3 additional exclusive items. Let's have a look at some of the things you may be offered. First up, there are 4 unique items that exclusively come from Hinokora for completing the tournament. This belt, for example, lists a plethora of really powerful properties, both beneficial and detrimental. While you're wearing the belt, the property shifts around every 5 seconds. You never know what's going to happen next. Will you always crit, always evade, never evade? Maybe you're able to find some ways to build around the detrimental effects to create as much upside as possible. Hinokora also has a selection of special, more advanced passive tree tattoos that you can only receive from her. This one transforms a 30 intelligence notable attribute skill into one that increases the level of all of your intelligence gems. You're only allowed 1 copy of the specific attribute combination tattoo on a tree. Hinokora can also award you with a new type of item called an omen. These are small items that sit in your inventory until a condition is met, at which point they are consumed and something happens. In this case, when you reach 25% life, your flasks are all replenished. Now don't worry, each player can only consume 1 omen per combat area, so you don't have any reason to fill your entire inventory with them. This one creates a portal on death. We made it for me. It won't try to save your life, but it will save you some time. This one grants you Soul Eater when you level up. It's definitely worth carrying around for that occasional massive power boost. Omens are tradable but hard to get, so use them carefully. I shudder to think about how much this one is going to be worth in the presence of those incredibly rare unique weapons from 320. Now note, going off script again here, Back in the day, when we had stuff like the Prophecy and so on that let you upgrade to rare forcibly on a specific base type, we had to block the good items by putting crap uniques on the, sorry, I meant upgrade to unique. We put crap uniques on that base type so that you couldn't get it every time. Well, we stopped doing that. So a lot of the uniques that were upgraded in 320 are just the only thing on the base type. So items like this let you deterministically get something quite valuable, hence they are quite rare. The most exciting one, though. Finally, Hinekora can offer you a lock of her hair. This is a very special currency item that lets you foresee the result of using another currency item to craft something. This means, for example, you can know whether it's worth exalting your item because you'll know exactly what the outcome is. Hinekora's lock will slot into your crafting pipeline with powerful consequences. The Trial of the Ancestors offers a wide selection of valuable new rewards as you complete matches and tournaments. We really look forward to seeing what strategies you develop for building, equipping, carefully placing, and playing alongside your tribe. So that's the new Challenge League, but Path of Exile expansions contain more than just a new league every 3 months. In each update, we also augment Path of Exile's endgame and shift the metagame with new gems and balance changes. This expansion is no exception. I'm going to explain the other changes in a medium amount of detail. I'm conscious that we have both new and existing players. For new players, I'm going to try to include some extra content to help make the changes more understandable. You can find out all the detail in the patch notes and other information we'll be posting in the few weeks before release. Let's start with how the Trial of the Ancestors expansion expands Path of Exile's endgame. In December last year, we released an expansion called The Forbidden Sanctum, which introduced the Sanctum Challenge League. This league was a roguelike game set within Path of Exile where you would randomly explore a randomly generated sanctum one room at a time alongside your regular play. You'd pick which rooms you wanted to explore out of several options and accumulate beneficial boons and detrimental afflictions that made your run easier and harder, respectively. Not only did Sanctum work really well as a league, but it also had the potential to be added to Path of Exile as part of its core endgame content, alongside systems like mapping, delve, and heist. Well, in this expansion, the Forbidden Sanctum is back.
Okay, maybe. I wasn't a big fan of it.
I've really been looking forward to this one. We're reintroducing the Sanctum as core content in Path of Exile's endgame. You'll initially meet Divinia, the Sanctum NPC, in Act 10. Sanctums are now tradable items that you can find while playing maps in the endgame. A forbidden tome represents a whole floor of the Sanctum, and its rooms can be played back-to-back, or you can take breaks between them and do something else if you choose. Upon successfully completing that Sanctum floor, the next floor is generated as a tradable item with all of the state of your Sanctum run built in. This means that the item stores what boons and afflictions you had, what rewards you've locked in, and how much resolve you have left. You can then either play this floor or trade it to someone else if it feels more beneficial. For example, let's say you manage to lock in a really valuable reward. The example here is a Mirror of Calandra, but you'll also notice that... Do I have a laser pointer? It doesn't work on the board. Okay, 1 resolve. This is an example here where the player has a very good reward locked in, but a massive pile of dangerous afflictions and only 1 resolve on them. If you don't feel capable of completing the rest of the Sanctum from this point, then it would normally be a write-off, right? If you gave this to me, no way am I getting that mirror. But you can now trade the Sanctum state to someone else who is willing to pay for the chance to earn the mirror, or lose it. And you can look at expected value in economics, right? It's worth some percentage of that mirror. So you trade it for like 5 chaos to someone, they run it and lose their chaos. Your relics, which act as passive bonuses within the Sanctum, are locked in for the run when you start the first floor and can't be changed for the rest of the run. Speaking of relics, they're now tradable and have been rebalanced around this. To those of you wondering, we have decided against bringing back sanctified relics for now. A complete Sanctum run now requires killing the final boss, Lycia, in both her first and second form. She will always drop a unique relic, and these have been reworked and replaced as we rebalanced everything. An important aspect of the new Sanctum balance is that your primary defenses now have some effect on protecting your resolve. Your armor allows you to mitigate resolve loss, and your evasion grants you a chance to avoid resolve loss entirely, a lot like how armor and evasion work. Your energy shield grants you Resolve Aegis, which is a mechanic that works similarly to how Energy Shield behaves for life. In light of the new defensive opportunities and learnings from the original Challenge League, we've rebalanced the difficulty of Sanctum, especially in later floors, and have worked to add more monster and room variety to runs. We've added new boons and afflictions themed around the new defensive mechanics and have rebalanced many of the other ones. Like other optional endgame systems that involve tradable items, players who don't want to play Sanctum can trade their Sanctums to other players in exchange for an item or currency that benefits them more. Successful Sanctum play can generate a lot of rewards. It'll potentially be possible to build characters dedicated to Sanctum running and just farm Sanctums repeatedly in order to profit. Sanctum isn't the only improvement that Trial of the Ancestors brings to Path of Exile's endgame. We're also introducing 16 new Atlas Keystone passives to the Atlas passive tree. As a quick summary for new players joining us, the Atlas tree is a system that allows you to customize your endgame experience in Path of Exile. As you complete different maps, you gain skill points that can be allocated in the tree. You could use these points to modify the behavior of different content you encounter in endgame maps to make it more difficult or more rewarding, or to behave entirely differently. The system allows you to double down on the content you enjoy and avoid content you don't. Keystones are really impactful passives that totally change how endgame systems behave. Usually they have an element of give and take and require you to come up with new strategies to take advantage of them.
Somebody get that man some
Each
water.
of these 16 new Atlas Keystones changes how you might interact with Path of Exile's endgame. Let's have a look at some of them now. We will reveal the rest of them before the release of Trial of the Ancestors in a few weeks. Extreme Archaeology completely changes how you play expedition encounters. Instead of placing a series of regular explosives, you now place one gigantic explosive. Every single chest or monster in the blast radius is affected by every remnant in that radius.
Jesus!
Speaker of the Dead makes it so that tormented spirits can possess you rather than possessing monsters, boosting your stats instead. While possessed, you can touch monsters just like a spirit can, making them stronger and more rewarding. It's kind of getting silly at this point, isn't it? Blight is like a tower defense minigame inside Path of Exile. The Cassia's Pride Keystone makes it so that Blight monsters take significantly less damage from players and significantly more damage from Blight towers. This basically lets you go all in playing it like an actual tower defense game. Because we can. Lucid Dreams makes it so that Val's side areas in your maps are no longer corrupted, meaning that you can use currency items to change their mods. That's right, when you encounter a Val side area, the Keystone lets you craft it.
Okay.
Yeah, so we rebalanced the side area mods, we've improved reward outcomes, and we've made the downside mods a bit more punishing, just to make it interesting if you try to go for the good outcomes. You may also rarely encounter a unique Val side area. Destructive play makes it so that the Maven will summon between 1 and 3 extra random map bosses when you are fighting witnessed map bosses. This keystone is analogous to the Eldritch Altar keystones that make those influences more difficult but more rewarding. There are another 11 new keystones that we'll reveal over the next few weeks. Together, these 16 keystones mean that regardless of how you enjoy your maps, you'll have plenty of new ways to play Path of Exile's endgame in this expansion. And I should note, in the initial draft of the keynote, I painstakingly went through every single keystone. It took like 10 minutes. But we'll put them in the news to save you some time here. In the Trial of the Ancestors expansion, we're shifting Path of Exile's metagame in several ways. The first is by introducing 14 new support gems, which are designed to take existing categories of skills and provide entirely new ways to play them. For full information, check the final gem hovers when we post them in the next few weeks. Let's have a look at a handful of these support gems now. In Path of Exile, war cries usually buff your party but don't directly hurt monsters. The Corrupting Cry support gem turns war cries into damage-dealing skills by making them inflict corrupted blood on monsters affected by the war cry or by your attacks that it exerts. The Returning Projectiles support gem causes projectiles from supported skills to return to you, piercing all targets but dealing a little less damage. I think there's another example too. The Fresh Meat support gem causes minions created by supported gems to gain adrenaline, critical strike chance, and critical strike damage for a duration after they're first summoned. So you've got to work out a way to keep refreshing your minions, and it makes them a lot more powerful. The Flamewood support gem causes totems to trigger projectile mortars at enemies that hit them. This is particularly synergistic with totems that can taunt enemies, such as Decoy Totem, or one of the new Chieftain Ascendancy skills that I might talk about shortly. The Sacrifice support gem works on spells that you either cast yourself or through totems. These spells now sacrifice a percentage of your current life or the totem's life to gain additional chaos damage based on how much life was sacrificed. The Frigid Bond support gem affects Link skills and causes a cold mist to come over them. Enemies caught in the beam are chilled and are dealt cold damage over time. This creates a new tool for a cold damage over time build requiring strategic placement of both yourself and your linked ally. I mentioned it was going to get silly. The Locust Mine support gem looks OP and affects attack skills that use bows and wands. Instead of directly using the supported skill, you throw mines in an arc that use that skill for you, targeting your location when you detonate them. In addition to these gems, there are another 7 that we'll be revealing over the next few weeks. In addition to the 14 new support gems, our balance work for the Trial of the Ancestors involved us revamping 2 Ascendancy classes. These are the subclasses that you can specialize in as you play through Path of Exile's campaign. Each main character class has 3 Ascendancy classes available. In the last expansion, Crucible, we overhaul the Pathfinder and Saboteur. This time, it's the Guardian and Chieftain, which are specializations of the Templar and Marauder, respectively. While we were very happy with the theme of the Guardian, it was falling behind the power level and popularity of other Ascendancy classes. Our changes in this expansion have modernized the class and will present you with more relevant build opportunities than before. Brace yourself. Okay. Path of Exile 102.
Be right back,
Harmony
guys.
of Purpose can power up parties using Link skills. Time of Need now completely cleanses and...
How do you grow hair? Look to the sea.
My bad, guys. That's my fault.
For marine proteins and rich vitamins, Viviscal supplements were born. One powerful pill, helping millions of women like you to regrow their hair. Thicker, fuller. Viviscal has been proven effective in over 10 clinical studies. It's your turn. Viviscal, proven to grow.
You can play it now. It's basically an entirely new Ascendancy class with the same name and art and a new way of approaching its themes. Its new skills let you, among other things, cause enemies to explode, turn off enemies' fire resistance while you're stationary, convert passive skills to apply to fire damage, and have your fire resistances apply to your cold and lightning resistances. I'll just give you a sec more to read. All right, that's on the site too for you to check out. It's pretty powerful now. To celebrate the release of the Trial of the Ancestors, we'll be hosting a boss kill event. To enter, create a hardcore solo self-found character in the Ancestor League and race to kill all 7 Uber Pinnacle bosses on the same character. Note that unlike the last event we ran, this one is not a ruthless event. We'll post more information about the event and its prizes in the news before release. Best of luck to everyone. For the Ancestor Challenge League, we're launching 2 new series of supporter packs, the Shade and Disciple packs. Each tier contains the pack's full face value and points, alongside several exclusive microtransactions. These packs are only available for the duration of the Ancestor League and will leave the store forever when it ends. As always, the microtransactions in these packs are purely cosmetic and do not affect the character's power or progression in any way, despite how cool they look. The Shade series of supporter packs contains 6 exclusive microtransactions. All right, the sarcophagus back attachment imprisons an unspeakable evil that struggles to break free. Nearby monsters send it into a frenzy, and enemy deaths provide it with souls to feast upon. The Stygian Waypoint shackles visitors to your hideout in chains, yourself included. These chains are just cosmetic though, and they break as soon as you move. It would supposedly be a gameplay advantage to be able to imprison people. The Ferryman's armor set is so full of trapped souls that some of them try to escape. Moving while wearing the boots will leave souls in your wake trying to break free. The Infernal Portal opens a gate to the Netherrealm when you approach. This prompted a lot of internal discussion about whether using Hellfire to heat your hideout is actually safe and practical. The Demon-bound crafting bench allows you to enslave a malevolent entity to craft items for you. Be warned, it has a sharp tongue and will mock you mercilessly.
You chained me for such a paltry use?
The Nebula character effect causes items you pick up to orbit you in an ethereal cloud of loot.
Nice.
The Disciple series of supporter packs also contain 6 exclusive microtransactions. Look at dog. I'm going to put that in the top pack. The Hero's Landing Finisher effect summons a marble statue from the heavens to execute unique monsters you defeat. You decide whether it's the sword or the huge lump of rock that actually kills them. The Bell Tower map device heralds the opening of a new map with a peal of bells. Start to run out of portals though, and it will reflect your desperate situation.
Nice.
This is fine. The Cathedral armor set refracts light through your character, creating beautiful patterns on the ground around it. If your life gets low, it responds in kind. The Observer Diamond Flask summons a tentacled mass that fires its eye lasers at enemies you critically strike while the flask is active. Again, cosmetic. The Currency Orb Charge effect lets you pick from a number of different currency types to replace your charges with, as long as you've used that currency item anytime from today onwards. Some people... We have to store it in the database, right? Some people will show they can be part of the exclusive club of players who have actually used a Mirror of Calandra. This effect also causes your charges to display in town. So the theory is you go use your standard mirror, which we all have, right? The Faithful Hound Pet is a very good doggo, and it knows a few tricks. You can command it to sit, roll over, or play dead. And yes, you can pet the dog.
Ah, nice. That's a good one.
These new packs are available right now at pathofexile.com/purchase, and purchases like these directly fund the ongoing development of Path of Exile 1 and 2. Meanwhile, the Lithomancer and Enchanter packs leave the store forever at the launch of Trial of the Ancestors, so now's your last chance to purchase them. There's some good stuff in those too. Thanks for your continued support. The fun part. For the last Exilecon, we developed a special card game that encapsulated the full gameplay arc of Path of Exile over the course of the event. Players could defeat monsters, progressively upgrade their items, use currency items to craft their equipment, find and run maps, and eventually defeat pinnacle bosses to earn rewards. It was a whole lot of fun, and we've had so many requests to run it again. So this year, we're proud to bring you the 2023 version of the Exilecon card game. And like all Path of Exile expansions, it even includes a challenge league. In your swag bags, you'll have found a box of Exilecon cards, and then a gentleman outside will have asked to purchase them from you for real money. If you have any cards left, you can use these to challenge GGG staff members who are walking around Exilecon as monsters. They'll be wearing t-shirts showing the monster's stats, which include symbols for their attack and defense. Using the cards in your deck box, and those you accumulate by defeating monsters,
that's cool.
Put together one set of armor, one weapon and shield, or a two-handed weapon, and an amulet and 2 rings. To defeat a monster, the damage on your weapon has to be equal to or larger than the defense of the monster, and the defense on the armor and shield have to be equal to or larger than the attack of the monster. It's that simple. There are some wildcard symbols. It's explained on the rules in the box. Rings and amulets are pretty hard to find, and they can be used for either attack or defense. So to attack a monster, politely approach a staff member wearing the shirt, introduce yourself, and show them the set of equipment you want to use. If your symbols match, then you'll have defeated them, and they'll give you a reward and remove some of the durability from your items. They do this by clicking the card, so if you want to keep a card pristine, don't necessarily attack someone with it. It will get damaged in combat. Be careful not to waste your best items on low-level monsters. You're not allowed to attack the same monster twice in a row, so you need to explore Exilecon to find different GGG staff members. You can get maps by defeating monsters marked as gods. Take these maps to the map device to run them and progress through the tiers. On the back of the box is a list of quests. As you complete quests, you can visit the crafting bench on the top floor to receive rewards for completing those quests. While you're there, you can also use your currency items to modify your equipment. I mentioned that this year's version of the card game introduced a challenge league. That league is Delve. Accumulate sulfite and bring it to the delve wall, sorry for the bad photo, it's hard with lighting, on the middle floor. Each sulfite card you hand in allows you to explore one tile of the Azurite mine. You'll all be working collaboratively throughout the event to delve deep into the mine, fight the monsters that lurk there, and uncover its treasures. And I feel really bad for the poor people that had to hang 3,000 cards on that wall.
Oh,
you may eventually be able to challenge the pinnacle bosses if you manage to get really far in the card game. I'm the Searing Exarch, Jonathan is the Eater of Worlds, and Mark is the Maven. Defeating any of the three of us will reward you with a Mirror of Calandra enamel pin. This pin is exclusively available for winning the card game and won't be sold in the merchandise shop. Each person can only receive a maximum of 2 mirrors, and when they run out, we can't give any more out, so try to win the game early. The reason for 2 is a very typical Path of Exile reason, 1 for you and 1 to trade. All right, it's almost time to go and experience Exilecon 2023. Aside from the card game, we've prepared a full weekend of activities for you. There's a busy roster of talks and interviews on the main stage and the streamer stage. We've posted a schedule at pathofexile.com/Exilecon, so you can see what is happening when and where. The schedule also includes information on meet and greet sessions. Our special guests this year include a roster of many of your favorite streamers, but also some game development industry friends we've met over the last 16 years. We're proud to once again welcome the creators of the Diablo series, David Brevik, Max Schaefer, and Eric Schaefer, as well as Travis Baldry, who you may know from Fate, Torchlight, and his popular fantasy books, or even the books he's narrated. They'll not only have meet and greet sessions, but are also participating in an action RPG roundtable discussion alongside me and Eric tomorrow on the stage. In all of the developer talks and panels, Exilecon attendees will be able to scan a QR code on their phone to submit questions for the speakers to discuss in the panel or on the Q&A section of the talk. The Path of Exile 2 Exilecon demo is a large one, and you may want to play it multiple times this weekend. In each session, you can pick from one of 4 character classes, which start at various points throughout the first 4 acts of Path of Exile 2's campaign. Around half of each act is included in the demo, and your session time is limited to 45 minutes before you have to let someone else have a turn. Remember, as Jonathan said earlier, this demo is hard. Read the signs that explain how your skills combine together. Dodge roll is your new friend. You should also swing by the Path of Exile mobile demo at the chill out area on the top floor and check out its progress. It's coming along really well, and we'd love to get your feedback on it. We've created heaps of new Path of Exile merchandise, which is available at our merchandise shop on the middle floor. We've made 17 new t-shirts, which include a few from our community t-shirt design competition. We've created a range of 24 enamel pins.
Amazing.
You'll have found a random one in your swag bag. If you approach me and I'm wearing a pin, feel free to swap for the one you've got if you'd like. Happy to trade. You can purchase the others in the shop. As mentioned before, there's also the super exclusive Mirror of Calandra pin that is only available to winners of the card game. Maybe you're able to trade for a full set. There are 2 new posters. One is the Atlas passive tree, and the other is the periodic table of currency. In addition to reprinting the incredibly popular Celestial Cat socks, we've also introduced the Chaos Orb socks, better for business meetings. There's also a range of 4 desk pads to keep your play area tidy. You can check them out at the demo zone. We have a limited range of Exilecon 2019 merchandise available in the store as well. Make sure to hit it up early if you want some of this, because stocks of the older items are quite limited. We have plenty of new merchandise for everyone, though, and I think I might have underestimated that. The Exilecon livestream concludes tomorrow with our grand racing finale, where 4 players compete for up to $10,000 and the title of Exilecon 2023 Racing Champion. Afterwards, we're hosting an after-party at 8 p.m. at the venue. If you're watching from home, please note that because there are multiple things going on at the same time here, and we can only stream one of them live, we'll be restreaming 3 of today's talks tomorrow before the event starts. So to be clear, they're occurring here, people can watch them in person, but you can't watch them at that time because we're streaming something else. So we're going to restream those tomorrow in the 3 hours where it's way too early to do it in New Zealand, but you can watch them online from the States and Europe. This makes sure that everyone is fully up to date on all of the talks that have been announced about Path of Exile 2 before the important Q&A in the morning where you get to ask the important questions. If you missed out on attending Exilecon this year, we'll be at Gamescom in Germany in August and PAX West in Seattle in September. At both shows, the Path of Exile 2 booth will have our Exilecon demo available to play and a small team of Grinding Games developers, including me and Jonathan, to chat to, and we hope to see you there. Thanks so much for joining us this weekend at Exilecon 2023. Have a great show, everyone.
I wish I could go to one of those. That was amazing, guys.
G'day, Exile. Welcome back to the second half, the post-stall cast. For you, I'm Ziggy D, joined once again by Mathel, Rise QT, and Ian. We're going to have a bit of a chat about what we've seen so far, and there is a lot to go over while we distract you while we wait for the next upcoming segment, which will be Kruparian interviewing Jonathan about Path of Exile 2. So until then, though, let's have a little bit of a chat about some of the things we've seen. Why don't we kick things off with the separation of Path of Exile 1 and 2 into separate games, and what that means. What do you guys have any thoughts about that, Mathel?
Yeah, apparently they didn't own enough of my soul. So, like, instead of just, playing as much as you want of Path of Exile League, a few weeks here or there, maybe half of it, something like that, and then maybe do some other things. Instead, you're pretty much locked in a cycle of playing both versions now with new launches continuously, and I'm just going to be doing that basically for the rest of my life. So that's the big shock and twist for me, but other than that, Path of Exile 2 looked amazing, and yeah, nothing short of what I expected.
Awesome. Yep. Rise?
I gotta say, I was thinking that that's the right path for Path of Exile. And I mentioned it to a couple people, and they were all going, nah, no, there's no way. They're not doing that. Even developers were like, we're not telling you anything. Turns out, they're doing it. So, like Mathel said, I think there's plenty to be played, and it's going to be for a long time. I think they have a very nice schedule with those last couple weeks.
I think it's absolutely incredible that they're keeping anything you buy off the store for both games.
Yeah, no, I agree.
You don't have to pay for two different.
I'm not sure. Like, you're still getting
stores,
PoE 1 and 2 at the same time, just in PoE 2, and all upgraded. So it's not we're gonna have this weird split between 1 and 2. You're just getting it all in one package with enough content to, like, just. Yeah.
Oh. I think them separating the games the way they are does answer a lot of questions about like how certain PoE 1 things might have changed over to the new system, PoE 2 and things like that. So I kind of expected that this isn't super unexpected, but what was really unexpected for me was the fact that they're keeping up with Path of Exile 1 expansions as well, like this split cycle. Like, I did not expect that in a million years.
I don't think anyone did.
Yeah, I thought PoE 1 was done, just go Legacy and you could go back and play the old content if you wanted to, but I didn't realize there was going to be new updates to that. That's good. That's a lot of work for them. They're basically going to be splitting their office into two teams at that point and continuing development of both games.
Yeah, that's going to be hard on them.
And surely Path of Exile 1 only gets bigger and better from here as well, because for the past few years they've been working like largely on Path of Exile 2, and diverting less of their resources towards the PoE 1 leagues and all that. They've still been good. They've still been big, but. Like now, if they're working on them in tandem, there's probably a large subsection of their team on Path of Exile 1 that maybe came back and kept, doing the new PoE 2 systems on it as well.
I'm super curious what this means for the long term. Like, do the games get to steer in different directions? Does Path of Exile 2 get to develop in one way, while Path of Exile 1 continues in a different trend? Maybe Path of Exile 1 keeps that much faster gameplay. Maybe PoE 2 changes to this more combo-focused gameplay, a bit more interactive, and they might grow apart separately over time potentially, or maybe borrow from each other as well. Well, it could happen there, right?
Yeah, that's a real possibility, because I remember seeing those trailers and thinking, that's going to be hard, especially with the Monk, that's going to be hard to fit into PoE 1, and I mentioned that before, and it turns out, well, they don't got to do it. And yeah, there's been a lot of talk, definitely, about some of the trailers that they've shown in the past, with the gameplay being more methodical, slower, more tactical, and PoE 1, let's be real, it's not exactly like that anymore, so...
Yeah.
I think there's going to be plenty for each type of player, but it's nice to have that opportunity to be able,
kind of taking it back to the slow pace.
Games, just try something maybe with a little bit different pace, but at the same time, we don't really know.
Yeah, let's talk about that gameplay, just in an overall sense, the gameplay of Path of Exile 2, what it looked like, what are you guys' impressions of it? What are your first thoughts on that, Mathel?
I mean, I loved how crisp everything looked. For the ice skills, the lightning, the world that the aesthetics, exactly. The world they built there, and just seeing the new classes doing their new things, it was exactly what I was hoping to see. It was at some times I think a bit slower than I would have liked, but that's just kind of how it is early on, and then especially during a demo. Yeah, you should have noticed that I think pretty much nothing was like supported too much. There was a lot of extra passives unused.
Yep.
But yeah, like you still want to be able to have your Path of Exile zoom and get through it pretty quick if you really want to. I'm sure we'll get that later on, but yeah, it looked just crisp.
Yeah, I anticipate that players will be playing that same content after a little while, twice as fast, right? With better links, better gear, better builds, and so on. For demonstration purposes, obviously slowed down quite a bit, but it does give you an idea of what they're going for there. And showing that, I think, does allow for us to see a little bit of the idea of like, okay, so maybe we have the fast encounters, players really crushing stuff really quickly, but then maybe like at endgame, certain bosses or certain bosses where you're leveling, have those longer encounters, and this is what Path of Exile can do with that situation. Here's much more dynamic gameplay. We did see very different styles of gameplay too, from the monk and from the sorceress. One felt like a fighting game, and then the other one had like meta skills and like a bit more like combination between those different spells and things like that. So how do you guys feel about that? Did you prefer one over the other, or?
I think just having the dodge available.
Yeah.
Every class without a cooldown.
That's big.
Is crazy.
It didn't have a
that's
cooldown,
massive.
Right?
Like,
keep rolling. That's crazy.
And I saw some animation canceling with that too.
Yep.
That is very, very cool. I think that's much better. Hopefully it's going to be much better than what it is in current Path of Exile with some of the animation canceling. But yeah, absolutely. I think the monk, pretty crisp. I think that was looking pretty good. The repositioning, the constant mobility, that's the sort of classes that I enjoy. So really
kind of wish we could see some of the melee.
I think the going to the PoE 2 and slowing it down a bit, and all the uniqueness of all the different kit with the weapon swapping and all that. I think you're going to be able to live more in a certain fantasy in PoE 2 than you've been able to be. Like, there's going to be more of a distinct feel to everything. Where even as like in PoE 1, you had flame dash on every warrior, like on every marauder, duelist, everything. Like you were a spellcaster, but also a fighter. It's like, so I think like they can really lean into like the uniqueness of every character, and I think that's going to feel real good.
Yeah, and then the weapon swapping as well. They haven't really specified what you can and can't do with that. They were talking a little bit about the different passives for like fire and lightning, but then can you do that with the types of melee weapons and switching that out? Like, that looks like a system that's got a lot of opportunity and probably going to be pretty tricky to develop around sooner or later.
That's what I figured. Looking at the weapon swapping, I thought it's an opportunity to be able to pick up like several different weapons while you're playing and actually spec into like a couple instead of just going for generic things and hoping that eventually you can commit to a weapon. This way you might at least be able to branch out into two different things, actually spec two different things, and then make a full choice later down the line. But yeah, I think it's going to have a big impact on melee as well as the casters.
Yeah, this all kind of like weaves into what you were talking about of things becoming a lot more distinct. Like you can have more distinctive styles between each class, but also distinctive styles within that class where you've got a character that's swapping between two weapon types for melee, or different staves or different wands or whatever for different caster styles. And that weapon swapping system was nuts. I did not expect that. So, and I thought that they'd be doing something with the skill system, so they kept what they had shown previously with the skill system. We saw the menu where you can drop your skills in and drop your supports in. We saw some very interesting looking meta skills, but then also adding to that and expanding that with this weapon swapping system that actually, like, it looks like it works, right? That's the thing that struck me about is like as the current weapon swapping system. Yeah, occasionally someone uses it.
It works. It's just uncomfortable.
Yeah,
like
no one really wants to do it. There's like an occasional build that takes advantage of it for the most part, but mostly we're leveling offhanded gems, right? It's not very interesting.
What about the gems, though?
Yeah?
I mean, the fact that they're in the... You can just pick them. You get the uncut, the curse.
Oh, yeah, the uncut gem.
Oh, yeah.
That was nice, wasn't it?
Yeah.
That was amazing.
That might be ruthless influence, because you can do that with ruthless, but you're so limited. While here, you can really mess around with it a lot. It's a really nice system, especially since there seems to be even more skills, and they're going to keep introducing like they have been every league. Right now, they're focusing on support skills, but I would imagine those abilities are also going to come into play eventually, so it's just growing.
Well, some of our predictions were about shortening that time from like finding something cool to using it, and that system being able to get a new gem in the field without going back to town.
Exactly.
Works for that, right? You find a cool new weapon. It's got a fire. It's a staff with like some fire skill or meta skill built into it. That's going to work really cool with this thing. You pick up your cut gem that you got in your inventory and cut it up into something that's going to work with that, and then you change your build on the fly. And maybe it's also working alongside and synergizing, but different to your currently existing build and your other weapon swap.
Just having the icon on the UI, and you can kind of figure out what the different things are and what your style is, versus, let's say you're in PoE 1, you go to a vendor, and all you're faced with is a row of different shaped stone, and you don't really know what to do with it. So I think that's really going to just open up like just your creativity on the fly.
Yeah, absolutely. Definitely.
A whole new level of speed running as well.
Oh yeah.
They don't have to go back to town.
Yeah, I'm just
wondering. Doing the race tomorrow, and that'll be kind of like sealing off the PoE 1 era of racing somewhat. I'm super interested to see what happens with PoE 2, like competitive play in racing. Like there's so much more that people can interact with there as well. I imagine weapon swapping setups being set up on the fly and cut gems being cut in the field.
Oh wow, yeah. I think the skill ceilings just opened up quite a lot.
Going right up.
Yeah, for sure, because that was a big limit for a lot of classes in the past for racing. For instance, Duelist, right? It needs that access to all those different weapons, and wasn't the case, but it will be now.
Yeah, so much more dynamic and distinctive gameplay there, but we also saw a bunch of new classes. Like more classes. What? There's already so many classes in this game. And then like with their ascendancies as well, like splitting that into so many more classes. So now, we got a mercenary, a warrior,
Huntress,
Druid,
sorceress, and druid. Yeah.
Druid. Yeah, there we go.
I'm shocked they didn't show the druid. Maybe
and that's it. And they didn't get rid of any. I thought they were getting rid of some. Like I thought Templar was gone. I thought Templar was being replaced by monk.
Oh really?
But they're all still there. It's like adding another class for each of the hybrids.
But they haven't talked about ascendancies, right?
Well, they did in the previous Exilecon.
Yeah,
they touched on it.
Right, but they didn't give us the info on it. No.
Yeah, not yet. I'm guessing in one of the later panels we'll start to touch on some of breaking those down a little bit. But yeah, it seems like their intent is to give much more distinctive starting points now. So like you actually, if you play a monk, it's going to have a much bigger impact on even your early game, not just the ascendancy choices you'll have access to, but also like the sort of skills that you have available and the play style. Much more than just an aesthetic.
And even the party play looked a lot more interesting. It seemed like they were really positioning themselves around each other, and it worked really well, I thought, with some of the more high mobility monk gameplay, and then the sorcerers being more in the back, more bigger cast times and bigger cooldowns. But then those big nukes, really, when I was watching the boss fights, it was kind of, I was going to cheer Neon on, like, do some damage. He wasn't doing anything, and Octavian was just blasting over and over, so having an opportunity to just go for those big hits and make it work is such a cool concept.
I'm really glad they showed the co-op gameplay because, like you said, it looked really good in that boss fight, that second boss fight, where one player was like really distracting and stuff like that. It looked much more like engaging than current multiplayer Path of Exile, and hard to put my finger exactly why, but I think one of the things was the new crowd control system they showed off, which is brilliant. It builds up crowd control over time. So like you hit them with things that freeze, it builds the freeze up until you get an actual substantial freeze or stun on a boss. We saw big stuns on those bosses. So instead of just like you build a stun character and you get like lots of little stuns, maybe you make a crazy character and you can stun lock or something, but most of the time the bosses are immune to this stuff or it just doesn't work.
They've hidden freezes, so it's like you've technically frozen them, but you haven't, and it's there for the sake of numbers, really.
Yeah, but now you're actually like building up to something, and when it happens, it's significant. That's when you're like, you and your party members can start blasting.
Yeah, you could see that they were interrupting some of the mechanics. You could also see that when it came to the gameplay, it wasn't as chaotic as usual PoE 1 gameplay. They were like stacking up for bigger mechanics and really synergizing well together.
Yeah, we saw, and like with the skills that, for example, the Glacial Cascade, the final hit dealing extra damage on the freeze, like you got your monk getting the freezes off, or the spellcaster getting the freezes off, and then synergizing skills across classes as well. There, where someone triggers that big freeze and someone else gets a big damage play off it.
And then you have all the new boss fights as well for every single zone, built in mind with the fact that we have the ailment system. So you're probably supposed to engage with them differently now as well. It's not just hit them a lot and like move once.
Yeah, that was one of the biggest concerns at the last Exilecon for me, that how do you really build this from the ground up to make it feel like it's not just a continuation of Path of Exile 1 and just another expansion, because GG's just so good at releasing these expansions over and over. You kind of grow accustomed to it, and I know that some other games have been doing that, where they release basically an additional campaign, and it hasn't quite hit the mark. So I think the final decision on, well, possibly, I'm assuming, the final decision on PoE2 being a separate game is going to be really cool.
I think we saw much more different boss design than what we've seen in the past as well. It was like, there wasn't just like a bunch of auto attack spam like you get with current bosses. There were much more big abilities per boss battle that we saw there. And they felt tighter, like they were happening end to end. Like there was much less place for the exiles to maneuver. So those crowd control mechanics have a chance to play a real large role.
I can't wait to play this game.
I feel like that shapes the combat in some way.
I mean, most of the mechanics looked pretty lethal. Like, you really do have to get out of the way. When we saw Neon die that first time, you could really notice, and just the actual fear that he had for every attack on that second time after that. He'd, like, there's just one pretty generic sweep, and you know you're going to be a little bit away from it. I saw him run right to the end of the back just to make sure he's not getting hit, and almost every single attack that did hit him, if it combos a little bit, he's going to die, and it made for some tense moments.
They really did him dirty. No unwavering stance. He kept getting stunned over and over. I'm like, whoa, they have no mercy for this guy.
They rehearsed that segment like a few dozen times as well, and you can tell the death wasn't planned. I'm glad we got to see the death.
They actually mentioned that they did about 20 of those runs, and he died on maybe the last of those runs, and then went, oh no, is that is it going to happen again? So then turns out twice in a row, basically.
Yeah.
So could not have gone worse, but that's what you want to see.
Yeah, started to get in his own head, I think, and was getting a little bit caught out by some of those abilities there. But yeah, that looked pretty brutal, but also quite satisfying. Like what we said, you know, probably you'll be a little faster in terms of actual gameplay with the players once your skills are better supported and things like that. But it's going to be like still fast and lethal gameplay. And I know that's something people will be concerned about. A lot of people see this like skill combos and a lot of these things, and they're like, I don't know if that's the Path of Exile 1, because a lot of people do like the really fast-paced Path of Exile, but it still seems like it's very fast-paced gameplay there.
But they do have the option now to go back to PoE. If they really just love everything that PoE 1 had to offer, it's still there. Nobody can go and say, hey, but it used to be this in the old days. Well, it's right there.
Sorry, guys.
You can just go and play it. And a lot of people want that as well. I mean, you see World of Warcraft expanding and expanding over years, but then there's a core style of play that they would really love, and that's why we have, you know, all the like the classic games now coming out as well. And that's essentially what, I mean, I think that's pretty clever of GGG that they're coming out and just giving us the classic experience straight away.
Yeah, we don't have to demand in 10 years' time, like, we want classic. They're like,
we're
you
spoiled.
think so, but you don't.
That's it, we're bringing desync back.
I'm glad we're not going back to that classic.
A little too classic for everyone's taste.
It's like classic, but continuing to evolve. My mind's still blown about that whole announcement. But you know what, a lot of people also, like, I heard people like in the crowd being like, tell us, why haven't you told us this? That was gold. Did anyone?
Gold, the gold was crazy.
Yeah, so they didn't actually touch on it, did they?
No.
There you go.
Spirit, they did talk.
It was like literally the first thing that comes up because they kill the first monkey and it drops some gold or something.
The whole crowd goes, ooh.
They're like, what? What?
Well, that might be a spoiler for people at home, but on the cards that we got at Exilecon, the currency orbs, they look different.
Very different.
Oh, really?
Very different.
Well, you've seen currency orbs?
Oh, hell yeah. I have like 2 transmutes.
Are they not just, they're not just more detailed? They actually look...
No. They're like...
They look very, very different.
The transmute looks like an Exalted Orb almost.
Yeah,
like,
I mean, story-wise, I can kind of justify this idea because we had... PoE 1 was very much like you were in a barter economy because everyone was just in survival mode on Rayclass, right? They're all exiles. They're all just like bartering useful items with each other. That's why the economy was built around that concept. So story-wise, like now, it seems like they're trying to rebuild. They're trying to make us, like, this character seems to be, that we saw some hints of, seems to be making some sort of society or something like that. So that maybe an actual currency system and actual merchants and things like that.
They gave us so little with that. It was really just like a 20-second snippet, and they just switched away.
Yeah, so...
Well, they did soft test the gold thing with the Ruthless League little event.
Right.
And I guess it was received well enough, because I think that was probably one of my least complaints of that thing. Like with gold, yep, that was actually a pretty cool system.
Yeah.
Where you can go back into town and purchase just a few basic items. So it wasn't like replacing currency altogether, but it was just an addition that gave you some options for vendors and stuff.
Yeah, it's interesting because, like, obviously when Path of Exile 1 was first kind of showcased, they came out saying that, we think gold's not a very good system. Here's how we want to do it better. So it'll be interesting to hear soon, maybe when they talk about it, hopefully, why they want to move to this system and how it's going to play in Path of Exile.
I'd like
and how
to
they
know that myself.
address some of those things maybe people don't like about gold.
Why would they
Keeping
go to
gold
that?
Useful, that sort of thing.
I think that's for sure happening. It's so bizarre that they didn't talk about that. Maybe it's one of those things where Chris is like, he missed a slide. I don't know.
Maybe. I mean, there was a lot to talk about, so you could easily skip a few things.
There was a few moments where we were like enjoying the gameplay, and we're just like, come on, tell us the things. Give me some off-the-cuff commentary. Come on. We got a few little moments of that. And speaking of that, there was the new mana reservation system. Instead of reserving our mana now, you have a completely separate resource. Spirit, was it?
Yeah.
You build up through getting items, quest rewards, build it up. And it sounds like it'll be improvable through itemization and the passive tree and things like that.
Yeah,
I'm very excited about that.
Plus 10 maximum spirit from a boss kill.
Yeah.
More reservation right there.
Happen, yeah.
But like, as a big fan of the Archmage and mana and all that, are you pretty excited about like being able to use your mana while at the same time being able to have the power of the auras and shit?
Yeah, but they're probably gonna nerf it. Nerf everything.
Doesn't matter. You can now still have determination on the side.
True. That's getting nerfed too.
That's well.
Determination's not gonna last.
If Crip has his way with the developers, then determination's gone. He's not a fan.
Maybe we'll find out in like 10 minutes or so when he interviews Jonathan. The way that they said it on stage is like, people are always out of mana. I'm like, yeah. Because that's one of my thing. Definitely, like, the feeling of being out of mana and not being able to cast your skills is
it's not just being out of mana. It's like we're ignoring it as a resource system. Essentially,
you're not using it at all.
Yeah, so like solving it is one thing, and that's part of the game, right?
Yeah.
You have a bunch of problems, you try and solve them, and it feels good to finally solve them. Whereas with mana, largely we're ignoring it. We're just like, you reserve as much, and then just make sure it's not a thing for you. With this, perhaps it'll, open up a lot more possibilities.
That's parts of what we saw with the Sorcerer's gameplay. The mana seemed like a more significant thing, and it also seems like they're taking, well, they explained it, but they were taking essentially what were archetypes, and they seem to really like putting them on support gems and whatnot. Like, for instance, when we had Forbidden Rite, which takes a portion of your HP and then does a lot of damage. That was really popular for a little bit with totems until it got nerfed. And they seem to have added that on a support gem, so I think that's the right way to go, honestly. It opens up a lot of opportunity, and whenever it does need a buff or a nerf, they can address it as a whole, and that might make it so that the patch notes are even more spicy than they have been up to now.
Excellent stuff. Yeah, we definitely saw like more skills that were like really expensive mana costs, like the meteors, cheaper mana costs, and then free, like the ones granted by items. So that means that definitely shows that I think there's going to be a lot more interaction with mana as a resource, and I think if they get that right, it's going to feel really good. Mana's hard though. Like a lot of games, I think struggle to get it right. They've had a lot of experience now, and I'm very excited to see what they try with the new system. We saw so many things today. Any other standout things?
I mean, for me, it was mostly classes. Like, we knew that there'd be some ascendancies and some character models and stuff. And I'm sure almost no one would have thought new classes, because when we first saw Path of Exile 2, it's a very locked-in, distinct platform of our usual classes, and then one of them drops down and you get to play it. And you're like, okay, that's what it is. Yeah. And they can't possibly expand on that. But then somehow they do, and all of a sudden, there's also just the shape-shifting thing, right? You thought we're going to get a shapeshift. Nope, entire droid. So that just fulfills the shapeshift fantasy for anyone that wants to go down that route. But yeah, and also the
hopefully
new skills.
They do
it said like 100 new skills or something.
Druid better than D4 did.
They can be kind of revamps, but I expected a few.
I hope.
Like, how can you keep making new skills when it feels like you're already reaching a limit of creativity? But there's just more.
It's so brutal to other games when we saw that, like, the rattling off of the stats, like 700 item types, 1,000 skills, 82 classes. I'm like, oh, how do other games, like, you just can't, right? Because they're taking everything from Path of Exile 1 and moving it forwards. And that's been my big complaint with some other games that have gone from version 1 to version 2. It's like everything else forgotten about, gone, completely erased.
It's kind of also interesting how they said that, I believe the Huntress is the, what was it, pole arms or some pokey type of weapon?
I think so.
Javelins and stuff?
Yeah, like spears specifically.
Like
so it's
Jav,
kind of
Amazon kind of vibes.
Yeah, I wonder if it's you're gonna be able to have that class be some sort of caster, or if they're really kind of tying it down, because that's very unusual for PoE. I know that they're doing stuff with the attributes, right, where they're splitting up different classes to have different attribute preferences, but to tie a class down to a weapon, pretty unusual in a game that usually had like all the freedom in the world.
I think it gives, if you think about Monk as well, it's all about movement and hitting and getting up close and dodging it out. If you think about like what can a spear do, I mean, if you just think about all the different ways, you could also pivot around it. You could swing around it. You can.
That's true.
Like attach it into something and pull yourself through it.
Well, the thing is too that with PoE, the gameplay's always been like, if it's melee, it's super melee. But if it's melee, but
I mean,
the game, well, the way that you would make melee work in the past is you just gave it a bunch of AoE. So maybe with
but PoE 2, you see
more
the Monk
weapons.
And you're like, it's low life. I dodge. I hit. You know,
I'm just hoping that it's going to be a more mid-ranged class, essentially.
Sure,
we don't really have that. It's either big AoE or, well, bad.
It definitely looks a lot more dynamic now. With
With the dashing, and they're attaching like a certain movement to every skill, so that you're never like feeling as if you're kind of missing because you've attacked from too far away. So that seemed to be actually a pretty big system as well to make melee refreshing.
I really can't believe the dashing. It's so crazy. Because forever they were like, no, mobility bad, nerf, nerf, nerf. And it was like, they were doing that forever. And I remember one of the most despised patches was when they put even more cooldown on mobility skills. So for them to just completely 180 on that, looking forward to it. And it's also very impressive from just a game point of view, because that's a big jump.
Yeah, it's changing the gameplay around it too, like in a very exciting way, I think. We also had the Path of Exile 1 League announced. I thought that looked so cool, right?
Yeah.
So you predicted the Survivors, and that's like a trending genre right now, but auto battle is also kind of a trending genre. So I was like, oh, Methel, you were close, mate.
That was a good call.
I think I was off by maybe a year or so.
Yeah, 1 year. Next year, maybe we get
maybe. Or maybe I just gave them the idea, and you know.
Yeah, someone's furiously coding right now.
But yeah, no, that one actually looked. It's a pretty big scope of that one. It seemed kind of similar to me of Sanctum, where it's like this separate thing where you interact with slowly and build your own sort of board and gameplay, and then have a big battle.
Yeah, it's like a tournament structure.
Yeah, and then start up another one later. But it seemed very kind of like Sanctum in the way you're going to engage with it, but then just a completely different mechanic altogether. And it was kind of more like grounding us, right? So as opposed to going all the way out into space and killing some other bigger things, it's still from our roots, our ancestral roots, and like the history of the game's characters and combat and all that.
All right, you guys have any thoughts?
So I don't know. So they showed some leaderboard stuff.
Yeah.
Will that be against everyone else? Like, will there just be one? I think there's just going to be one
method. For your own
your own character,
so that you're like getting higher up through the system and getting further along to higher combat.
I would like to PvP some other people though.
A little bit of like how far.
It would be a good PvP system.
Yeah.
All right, folks, we've been given the wrap-up, though. We're going to be moving over in just a moment to Kriparian interviewing Jonathan, talking about Path of Exile 2, I believe, and I look forward to hearing what we're going to be able to hear about them. Thanks, guys, for joining me for the Stallcast. I hope you enjoyed it. Hope it kept you occupied while you were waiting through these difficult times for the more interesting content. Happy to be of service. Thanks for watching.
Alright guys, I think that's gonna be it for me. I will talk to you all later.